right, welcome everybody to, I think, what's going to be one of the best Collectorcast shows we've ever done, just from the topic that's at hand. For those you that are not here with us recording, you just have to know that for us, the date is 9/9. Well, Mortal Kombat 2 came out for the home consoles. 9/9. So, Mortal Kombat 2, guys. Yes, Mortal Kombat 2 show.
Not it.
No. Was there something else? Was there something else that came out on 9/9/99?
The single greatest console launch of all time also occurred on 9/9 of 99.
I'm pretty sure the NES launched much earlier than that, but go ahead.
85, Bill, come on.
This was my absolute favorite console launch, the SEGA Dreamcast.
Oh, that's right. We're going to have a Dreamcast blowout special here today. But let's get some formalities out of the way. So those voices that you hear, I am the melodious Duke Togo, your host. And joining me is a man that plans to add maybe an extra fridge of beverages in the back and then relabel his store the new Game Quest. Crabmaster.
Hey, guys.
How are you?
I am in a fantastic mood.
Yeah, you've been battering down the halls of justice and really...
It's been going well.
Yeah, you're winning the day up in the cold north, right? So people will be able to sell you stuff quickly and all that.
Couldn't be happier with how it's moving along.
Awesome. And a man that was deeply saddened to learn that the new 3DS was not called the 3DSX. Bill. Wow, Bill.
Well, all the systems with X at the end, they're just more melodious.
Because they're extreme. But that sets us up well. We're talking about the 90s. So, a couple quick things to get out of the way. Where can we find us, guys? Bill, where can people get at the show?
www.collectorcast.com.
Does that need the HTTPs in the front? I don't remember.
Really, really not necessary.
Okay.
What's the AOL keyword?
If you're using IE4 or earlier, you might need the hypertext transfer protocol : /
Forward slashes, those are important, right?
World Wide Web. Well, and only if you're on the internet and not your intranet.
Very good. So yes,
World Wide Web.
That's right. Collectorcast.com. Krabby, where else?
I've heard we have a Twitter feed.
We do. I'm pretty active on it. You guys should be too. Bill, did you get the message I sent you?
I did. I saw it. I'm flattered that someone would think of one of us, and even more flattered that it was me.
You should be. So you have to log on to the account and check that out. Somebody wants to send you a freebie, so take advantage of that one.
I will, and that's very nice of them. I believe I might have the freebie they want to send me, but I have no problem accepting free NHL games so I can spread them to other people.
The illness keeps spreading. Yes, very good. So definitely Twitter. Where else, guys?
rfgeneration.com.
Yeah, you can go to that silly website where you can track your collection and talk to us, which is awesome. And there's a show thread over there for the show, so you can definitely do that. And we're on the actual show itself. You can find it on YouTube, right?
Yep.
That's where I always watch it.
Yeah, but of course, because who blocks YouTube? There you go.
Well, my company does, but I'm in charge of the DNS filters, so...
Da-da-da! Hope your boss didn't listen to this one.
No.
Where else, Bill? Where else can people get the show?
Man, you ever feel like it would take less time to list all the places that we aren't?
Maybe.
Oh,
but unfortunately, we're locked into this awkward stance.
So many places. The long-awaited Zune marketplace.
Zune, that's right. Let's rapid fire him. Krabby, where else?
Stitcher.
Yeah, Stitcher. And?
Podcast Pickle.
Yeah, very good.
He beat me to it.
Yes. And Facebook. So anywhere there's the podcast in your ear holes, plus
Podomatic, right?
Podomatic, the Podomatic app. Yeah. All
Sirius
right.
XM.
No, not yet. Soon. Maybe if they'll take us. We're gonna bump Stern off, don't worry. All right, so yeah, let's start off like we have been the last few times. We've got some questions. from the Facebook and the Twittering. So let me pose you guys some questions here. The first one up is from @MFlaginski. And Mr. M. Flaginski says, what do you guys think about collecting potential for collecting discs? And I was happy that he spelled it properly with a C. Does their lack of durability raise any concerns? Thanks. Krabby?
Okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, Bill, jump in.
I've got no concerns at all. I love discs. Turbo CD, Saturn, PlayStation, Wii U, PS2. Got lots of discs at home, and I'm planning to get many more. Oh, and I should mention Dreamcast as well.
Bill?
It's really weird. I have zero concerns with older discs. And it probably should be reversed. Like, I should be more concerned about the older discs. But I have zero concerns about PlayStation, like Xbox, PlayStation 2, Dreamcast especially. I find discs newer than that, less interesting. So I don't know if that's exactly his question, as far as, like concerns about collecting discs. I just don't collect them because I don't think they're as interesting.
What about the evil disc rot?
I've never run into that yet.
I have also, I feel like it's a myth. I feel like it's something that you can, recreate in a lab, but you've never seen in the wild.
I've yet to run into it myself.
Maybe someone's got, a swampy basement and, there's, bacteria eating through someone's disc somewhere, and, Mythbusters is oh, yeah, it could totally happen. I also feel like disc rot is more likely on really crappily made cheap media and something that's commercially pressed, and maybe has a protective coat over, the side with the data. I just never really been worried about disc rot. A lot of people, they bring it up, but I don't know. I guess until it happens to me, it's not real.
Yeah, I still play games, listen to music, and watch movies from the 80s on discs, and I have no issues with anything even that far back.
All right. Well, me personally, sometimes I think about getting out of discs, maybe just keeping the super ones I really like, just because it's me. I'm an old cranky jerk, and I like plastic cartridges much better. But I'm not deeply concerned about disc rot or damage. I keep mine in, I think if you keep it in a fairly climate-controlled environment and you're not putting them in weird places, they should be fine, at least probably longer than my lifetime. So, I'll be dead. What do I care, right? Yep. Somebody will sell it on eBay anyway, whatever. All right. So, up next, we've got one of our UK listeners send us a message. So,
cheers.
It's chip hip cheerio, right? At Starlack UK.
We have one fewer UK listener now.
I just fish and chips. That's all I know, right? I've been in the UK.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for a minute.
Nice.
So at Starlack UK. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but was that how you guys would say that? Starlack UK?
Yeah, like a Starlack.
Yeah, kind of like that. So Starlack UK writes, what was the first game you ever bought, quote, as a collector, end quote, and why? As opposed to one you just got as part of everyday buying and playing.
It's so hard to remember. Because you guys, obviously, you already, all of us as gamers, we already had games. And it's not like one day you decide, I'm going to be a collector and I'm going to buy this game because I'm a collector now. There's always the intention of play behind that purchase decision. So it's hard for me to pick out, the first game I bought because I thought it was going to be collectible and not necessarily to play. But it might have been in the Xbox 360 launch a couple of years, when there was a Mass Effect collector edition.
Oh, yeah. I wish I had that one.
Yeah, I don't have it, but that was the first time I remember seeing a thing and thinking, I think that's going to be rare. I think I'm just going to get it and leave it on a shelf.
And you should have.
I should have. That would have been a good decision because Well, and not even because of the money, because like I don't buy things to sell them. I mean, like things that have value, like they're just, they're cooler. But I still, whether it was sold for a lot of money or a little money, it'd still be sitting on my shelf. So it doesn't make me feel too bad when stuff like kind of blows up in value that I don't have. I just wish I had it 'cause it's cool.
Yeah, definitely. Krabby?
It's gotta be stadium events.
What?
This is the first time I ever spent money on something that I could play in some other form, and I knew it wasn't just because I was curious about it. Like, I would have just went with World Class Track Meet if that was the case. That's like one of the only games I bought as a collector that I didn't have like a intention to just buy it and see how it was.
I can believe that because you played like 40-something hours of like RBI baseball or whatever, right?
I intend to put a lot of time into all my games. That one, I just wanted to, check that box, complete the NES library list.
For me, it's got to be Stack Up. I remember, it was probably...
Yeah, that's...
Buy that for the gameplay? Come on.
Yeah. I was in the 90s. I was at one of the local rental stores, was, of course, getting rid of their NES stuff because it wasn't cool. And and
did they know.
Yeah, little did they know at that time. But they had Stack Up, and I had literally not ever really seen Stack Up anywhere besides, I remember when it was out in the store as a kid, like in the big box, you would see it. But other than that, I never saw it. And I was like surprised to even see it, honestly. Like, what, like a rental store had Stack Up? But, yep, I picked up Stack Up, and that was eons ago, and that was probably the first time I bought a thing just to, like, I went, oh, this might be something. And unfortunately, I probably didn't pick up the other 50 carts that were probably worth way more that were sitting right there. I'm sure, there were, all that stuff. But
they had that Zombie Nation for you right there. You missed out.
They probably did. I also remember buying Dracula X from Blockbuster on clearance for $6, brand new, which I later made a lot of money off of because I kept it sealed. But there was a whole stack of them, right? If I would have just somehow known, I would just bought all of them and been very, very wealthy.
That would have been a new car.
Yeah, yeah. Or like the stacks of Earthbounds that I remember seeing. Anyway. Coulda, shoulda, woulda, right? All right, up next we've got at the Single Banana. I think we know this guy.
Ooh, the Single Banana.
At the So what that really tells me is even Rich is on Twitter, Krabby. People ask me, hey, Krabby on Twitter? No, can't be bothered. So at the Single Banana says, what is your favorite beat 'em up for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System? I'll be listening to ensure you pronounce them correctly.
Why? What games would anyone mispronounce?
I don't know. Maybe Combat Tribes? I'm pretty sure that's not on the top of anyone's list.
I should probably not go first. As mainly a Genesis guy, I didn't play a ton of beat 'em up, so I'm gonna have to think about it.
Let's make Chris go first this time.
I bet I can guess.
Why don't you just tell me the name of what do you think?
Is there a final in the name?
There is Final. I would say, oh man, just Sega CD Final Fight really beats the living tar out of Super Nintendo Final Fight.
Right, but we're not talking the best version of Final Fight. We're talking about beat 'em up on the Super.
Yeah. Even I've had a lot of time to think about this, and I've really not come up with a fantastic idea. There just aren't, right?
What?
I mean, so this is my answer.
Wrong.
All right, this is my answer. The Ninja Warriors. That's my answer.
It's a good pick.
Yeah, it's a good pick.
Yeah.
But the Genesis really blows the crap out of.
Oh no, that's not true.
Come on, like Combat Tribes. Come on, man.
In this genre, I think there's not a whole lot of genres that I think the Genesis destroys the Super in. I kind of feel like this is one of them.
Beat 'em ups and shooters, man.
I can't agree with that.
Well, your opinion is welcome here, and I'd love to hear.
So bring it. Bring it.
I had a hard time picking because I had so many that I liked.
Okay.
I have to go, like you guys have seen my avatar, obviously. I gotta go with Final Fight just because the pile drivers are awesome.
So original Final Fight?
Yeah, it's always number one.
Not even.
It was close with Captain Commando and Knights of the Round, though. I absolutely love those games.
Yeah, Knights of the Round was pretty good. I'll give that to you.
You play Captain Commando?
I've played it a couple times, and I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites. It's okay. It's pretty good.
Be a baby who's a genius and drives like a mech robot that he built, and that's your character. It's like the best.
It's something. Yeah. And then
you played King of Dragons?
Yes. Yeah, I had that one. I think traded it. I've still got the box, I think.
Ooh, you want to part with that?
I'm always up for tradesies.
All right, tradesies. We'll talk after.
Sweet. Bill, anything? Can you help us here?
You have to keep in mind that I didn't play a lot of beat 'em ups on the Super Nintendo.
Please tell me Combat Tribes.
I'm thinking I'm going to go with Alien vs. Predator.
Cool.
Alien vs. Predator.
I mean, it's not going to make anyone's, list, but like, it was like that, kind of arcadey, kind of Double Dragon-y, Final Fighty, like beat 'em up style, but like, you're Predator and you're fighting hordes of aliens, and like, I just thought it was cool. And, it's one of the only, games in that, style that I played on the Super. I played mostly Genesis in those days. But I liked it a lot.
Sweet.
Batman Returns gets an honorable mention from me too.
Okay. I can see that.
I don't know if I played it on Super. I played Batman Forever.
No.
That's
Much different.
I'll just throw out there that I am actually looking to replace a copy of the Ninja Warriors, so to our listeners, if anybody has one sitting around. Okay, up next, at Wimpy Animations. I think this might be a Wimpster. At Wimpy Animations asks...
Just a big Popeye fan.
Maybe. He'll gladly pay you Tuesday. If you could only play one game franchise for the rest of your life...
Oh, man.
What would it be? He's given some examples, only Mario games, Final Fantasy, etc. It's pretty broad. But
right.
What game franchise? Rest of your life, that's it.
Oof.
Does this include spin-offs? As long as they have the franchise name in the
I'm
title?
going to say no. So, like, you can't say Mario Kart if it's the Mario series.
Okay, but like,
I guess that's fair enough. If you say Mario games, that means like the platformers and not at the Olympics.
Yes. I would say 3D and 2D Mario.
Okay, so here's my big question. If I say Mega Man, does it include Mega Man X?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
that's my answer.
Because that's a major main game in the franchise. That you're going with Mega Man?
I'm going with Mega Man. I'd never get sick of it.
Okay, all right. Mega Man 2 is pretty awesome. I'll give you that. All right.
Is he allowed
3 and X.
Is he allowed to also play Rockman, or is that against the rules?
I guess, yeah. I'll give him that.
You'll allow it.
I'll allow it.
That's right. I'll give him that.
Thank you, Worship.
Mega Man Soccer, though. No, that's right out.
Yep, right out the door.
Yeah. I changed my answer.
Bill?
Oh, man, this is rough. Only play one. I'm gonna go ahead. Oh, this is so difficult. Due to the sheer number of hours that I can drop into these kinds of games, and if I'm only gonna get to play one, I would need a developer to continue making content for it. But the Elder Scrolls.
Oh, yeah, I could see that.
So, like as long as they keep making, whatever the next, and not the MMO, the Oblivion style, Skyrim style, and like the Fallout formula. I'd love to also play the Fallouts, but he said one franchise, not one style. So I'm going with, Elder Scrolls.
Very interesting. All right. I'm going to go with Castlevania. It's probably pretty easy. It's probably pretty easy for everybody to figure that out.
Do you have to separate 2D from 3D in that one?
No, because I would give you in Mario, I'd give you the 3D Marios.
All right.
And they're all, action games or whatnot. So I think that's pretty fair. And there's a lot of
I'd love to challenge Duke to only play nothing but Castlevania games for 1 year.
What's my prize?
Life fulfilled.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not a good enough prize. Come on, man. Hey, I've been working on my pile of shame. What have you guys been doing?
Yeah, that's true. You're making me feel a little more shameful watching all your posts.
I'm almost ticked off 2 of mine.
I've was proud of you with your Dragon Warrior. That was very exciting.
That's right.
I've moved and everything. I've got one of my games from the pile on deck. now that like everything's hooked back up. Isret, in the thread of the last show, he said, I knew you were going to say black as soon as you started talking about Criterion. And he said, it's a really good game and it's not terribly long. So I pulled it out. It's on deck. It's going to happen.
All right. He says the same day Destiny drops that he bought.
Yeah, I've been playing copious amounts of Destiny today.
I would imagine you have. I'll tell you, I was really tempted to say Rock Band. Really tempted to say Rock Band.
What a fantastic answer.
Yeah, it was like a super close decision there.
Yeah.
Rock Band is awesome.
It is that style of game that I really can just like, if anyone just walks into my house, like, cause I don't normally play it, but like if someone walks in the house and say, hey, you want to play that?
Of course.
Absolutely. That would be fantastic. Let's get everyone over and get some food and just make a day.
That's right.
That's a good answer. I know Krabby's more of a circles guy, right?
Yeah, circles are way greater than rectangles.
Well, hey, we told you could have an opinion, but you can't just be...
That's not an opinion, that's a fact.
Wow.
Circles are better.
Whatever. All right, last one. At Real Jeff Funstick. All right, that sounds like Jeff has a good time. At Real Jeff Funstick asks, have you guys ever had a bad experience in trading or buying where you got ripped off?
I've had a few, but they were my fault.
You ripped the guy off? And
No. Like I got ripped off and it was my fault.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, like you overpaid for something or?
I have a tendency to get like really excited.
Okay. I can imagine that.
And I don't like keep my cool. So like instead of like seeing a thing and having a poker face, like I see a thing and like I touch it and then like I look at it and I flip it around and like, then I'm like, hey, and then I don't know what to say. Like, I've got the whole thing in my head before. So like there's been a few times when like I, will buy something and then, whether it's at a store, at a flea market, and then like get home and it's like, oh, there's no manual in this thing. Or like, you look at it really like closer and you're like, oh, this isn't as nice as I thought it was. So, I think more along the lines of like getting ripped off. I have gone to like, drive 35 minutes for a Craigslist lot and person tries to hike the price on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of, that person's trying to rip you off. And then what happens is like, you end up like, listen, like, I just drove 30 minutes. Like, this is what you said it was going to be. That's what I'm paying you. And then they're like, well, I got another guy who's saying this. So, like, you kind of have to, they've opened the negotiating back up. So, I always feel like that's probably a lie and they're just trying to get some extra bucks from you. So, like, I kind of feel ripped off when that happens. But at the end of the day, like, if I didn't think it was a good enough deal to make the purchase, I would walk away. So, I don't think it's ever been so bad that, like, I've, been fuming about it. But yeah, I mean, just here and there, you'll kind of like go home and I'm like, oh, I really should have kept my cool and not like, just thrown dollars at that thing.
Krabby, ever get ripped off?
Yeah, 2 times. Both online purchases. I won't name any names, but for a member on Nintendo Age, took a picture. I was buying about 20 games off him.
Mm-hmm.
So he took the picture of, all the games so that it was far enough away you could see all the games. And there were a couple uncommon ones I probably should have asked for closer pictures on, but from the one he sent, they looked great. And everyone else I've ever dealt with has just, if there's a major error with something, they will say like, hey, everything looks great except this one game has this, rip in the label or whatever.
Right.
And so, I'm at fault too for not asking for more detailed pictures. But I got a copy of Gemfire on the NES and Pro Sports Hockey included in this lot. And the Gemfire had a pretty nasty gash in the front of it that it looked like the person just like used their finger to fold it back down so you couldn't see it.
Oh, yeah.
And the Pro Sports Hockey had a nice nick out of the side too of the front label that was pretty noticeable up close, but not from like a couple feet away. So I felt a little bitter about those ones just because usually when I'm paying for an uncommon game, I'm paying for the quality too. If I get a crappy common game, I can condition upgrade it later.
Right.
So those ones kind of burned me. And then in the last year, I remember on RF Gen, not a regular member, had a for sale thread, and there was a lot of stuff he had on there that I could use for the store. And we ended up working out a deal for around $200, and he's never logged on since.
Oh.
Yeah. So I was just, and I was so busy opening the store that I missed the 30-day window to try and get a refund through PayPal. So I was out of that.
That sucks.
Yeah.
That sucks. For me, I'd say, yeah, I bought a Vita. But no, I'm kidding.
Come on.
Come on. No, seriously though. No, one time I bought a Commodore 64, Craigslist meetup. Bought a Commodore 64 setup, disk drive, a bunch of stuff, and I got home and the Commodore 64 was dead on a doornail. So I had to eventually find another Commodore 64. But I think I paid a pretty fair price for everything, so I was kind of unhappy when I got home, but. It was one of those Craigslist meetups where you text somebody and you end up in a parking lot. So, when the guy wouldn't answer my texts, what am I supposed to do? So,
yeah, when it's funny how like my perspective on Craigslist has changed over the last few years. Like it used to be, someone has your number, you have their number, you're texting, and like now, I'm thinking like I don't want to give anyone my phone number, like. I create like dummy email accounts now, and like I used to be like, oh sure, here's my cell, call me, swing by the house, whatever. And now like, and nothing's happened to make me like more cautious.
You got a child now.
Yeah, it might be it. I'm just like,
Daddy can't come home stabbed.
And same thing with sports. My wife's like, what sports are you gonna play? I'm like, well, I don't want him hanging out with those football drinking high school guys, so he's not playing football.
He's only 5 months old, but let's not start him off down that path.
No. Well, we don't want him, no baseball, no football. He's just going to play the cool sports.
We played it safe. Our kids in swimming and gymnastics.
That's good.
Yeah.
Bill, here's the magic Google Voice. Then it's not really your voice. It's really not your number.
That could work.
Yeah, it works for me. All right. Well, thanks everybody very much for sending in those questions. And as always, if you've got more, then feel free to shoot them our way. Hey everybody, it's Duke here to tell you again about our sponsor, Off the Charts Video Games. Be sure to listen all the way through the spot because there's a special offer at the end for Collectorcast listeners. We all know that shopping online for video games can be a hassle. If you shop on eBay, you have to pay shipping to each individual seller. On Amazon, you never see what you're really going to get. And as for the leading online classic game retailers, well, we all know that their prices aren't the best. After years of collecting, trading, and selling on multiple marketplaces, the guys at Off the Charts Video Games have built a site with the needs of collectors in mind. OTCVideogames.com gives the experience of a brick-and-mortar store while you relax at home. With pictures and individual descriptions for every item, you will know exactly what you're going to get. Every game is tested in-house on their multi-system testing station, so your order will come back with their quality guarantee and great customer service. Off the Charts now sells separate boxes and manuals so you can buy complete and box games all at once or complete your loose games. Browse their games, boxes, and manuals separately or all together. Boxes and manuals are posted now for Nintendo 64 and are coming soon for other systems. Everyone knows the most annoying part of buying online is shipping. Well, at Off the Charts, orders over $50 get free shipping in the US. Not only that, but they always ship orders out the next business day, Monday through Friday, and every order gets tracking. Choose your favorite provider, whether it's UPS, FedEx, or the US Postal Service. Check them out for yourself at www.otcvideogames.com or see their inventory updates and meet their staff on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube with the handle OTC Video Games. Again, that's www.otcvideogames.com and OTC Video Games on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. As a limited time special offer for Collectorcast listeners, enter coupon code Collectorcast at checkout to receive a 5% discount on your order. Again, that's coupon code Collectorcast, all together, one word, no spaces. right, so in this episode, we're going to spend some time to talk about the last and really, I think, one of the great Sega consoles that came out, and that was the Sega Dreamcast, which launched 15 years ago today, as we record this, on September 9th, 1999. So 9/9/99, that was the big deal. At least in North America. Now, of course, in Japan and Europe is different, but that was the big launch day here in the U.S. for that one. And there had been stories about the Sega Dreamcast for some time, and there was kind of like some back and forth where they'd gone. There was like, do you guys remember the stories where it was like two competing designs for the Dreamcast?
No, I didn't hear anything about that.
Yeah, there was some internals, like, they were working on what the next platform was going to be like. And there was one design that was from one team, and then there was another design from another team, and they kind of battled back and forth until they eventually decided on the one that became the Dreamcast, and Lord knows whatever happened to the other one. But I remember because there was code names, and I think the code name that eventually went out was codename Katana, and I think you can still see that on the Dreamcast motherboard. I think it might still say Katana. But I don't remember what the other code name was. But they were like, in EGM and all those magazines at the time, there was a lot of stories about, because they had made some public statements, or one of the companies they'd work with. Because do you guys remember 3DFX?
Yep.
Yeah, I guess they had originally talked about going with 3DFX, and then there was some sort of falling out there, and eventually they went with some other company for their 3D tech. So that was interesting. And then they also did a big partnership with, how weird is this? Microsoft, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so for the Dreamcast, they had really two modes that you could write software for. There was like the standard, like our console mode, which was like most consoles where you're just writing code straight to the actual hardware itself. And then they had Windows CE, which was like a mobile device operating system that they had for all sorts of like handhelds and things at the time. But they put that on the Dreamcast so people could code for games for Windows CE, and then the Windows CE OS would actually be on the disk with the game, and all that stuff would just load up. And you could do that. There's more overhead, but easier for like Western developers supposedly to code games, right? So you could even see it right on the front, right? It said like the little Windows CE logo.
Yeah, that was one of the interesting parts for me, like that, Microsoft was able to negotiate, well, we'd like our name to be on this thing.
Yeah, and I want to set some parallels up, because I think it's really interesting that, at least to me, and we can maybe talk about this later if we want, but the Dreamcast really seems to be like Xbox 0.5.
Yeah, I feel like they, even though they weren't like directly involved in the development of the hardware, I do feel like it was kind of like dipping their toe in the pool.
And then I read it. I don't know, I didn't do the research for the validity, but whoever, I guess, was in charge of Sega at the time when they got out of it and then Microsoft was doing their Xbox, wanted the Xbox to have backwards compatibility for the Dreamcast built in.
That would have been just weird.
And you notice how similar, at least to me, that the Dreamcast controller was to the original Xbox controller in a certain way. I mean, had triggers, right?
The big Duke ones?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not thinking about, comparing size for size, yeah. I mean, you kind of had a similar overall shape, like that flat face design, 4 buttons, triggers. Yeah. I guess it's pretty close.
Thumbstick. There wasn't dual thumbsticks, but it was an offset with a little D-pad and, And the Dreamcast controller, which we'll talk more about, had 2 slots in the top, and the original Xbox controller had 2 slots in the top.
Yeah, I think this is a little too conspiracy theory for me.
I'm going to go home and jam a VMU into my Xbox controller immediately.
I wouldn't recommend it, but there's a lot of similarities here, I think. A lot of similarities. But let's talk about the Dreamcast itself, the hardware, what you got in the box. And speaking of box, Bill, you got a box, right? Did you unpack your stuff?
I got a pack. Yeah, I unpacked it. I didn't take any pictures yet. I was gonna I'll post those in the next couple days. But yeah, Duke sent me, in a large lot that he initially felt. Well, actually, remember the earlier question about have you ever been ripped off? So Duke ripped this guy off.
I did not.
Whole bunch of stuff
No,
for like $1.
No. This guy is actually a personal friend of mine.
Oh, okay.
He really just needed it gone because he was literally moving to Japan next week. And he's like,
Oh, wow.
I've sold everything I can on eBay. This is everything I've got left. I can't do it. I can't take it with me. I can't leave it. He said, I really just want you to take it. And if you want to give me something for it, feel free. And I did.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, Duke, he sent the list to a couple of us, and I said, yeah, Bill wants that, want that. So I didn't get all the stuff, but I got a lot of the stuff. So Duke sent me, among other things, the launch window box for the Sega Dreamcast. That kind of like white box with like that weird like orangey red like lit, Dreamcast.
I like that box.
Yeah, that box is cool. The later box wasn't bad, where like they kind of went with like the dark space theme with like the the horizon. And for a while, that was just like a sleeve that slid over the regular box because he wanted to make it like spacier. But yeah, so Duke sent me several Sega boxes. So it was a Dreamcast. There was also a Sega CD Model 2 box in there. And Point Blank box in GunCon. And then there's just a small, like a little Super Nintendo game tray for I was speaking earlier about like, when I get too excited, I found like a Super Nintendo game boxed, and I bought it at the flea market, not realizing, oh, there's no cardboard in there. So that's just something that I do.
Well, going back to Dreamcast then, yeah, like you said, they had, the box, and it's a pretty compact box.
Oh yeah.
Not
That's
like,
a solid little system. Yeah, it's, like a lot of things you pick up, like DVD player, like, like PlayStation 2, whatever, they kind of feel like they have some hollowness to them, right? Like the internal components are on one side, and the rest is just like to make it fill up that shape. The Dreamcast system itself, it always felt just like a little rock to me. It just felt like a solid little system. And the same thing with the box. Like it was just like a real nice little compact, like, package there.
Yeah, definitely. So, inside the box, you have the Dreamcast itself, which, like you said, is like a rock solid little heavy.
Yeah.
The thing is a small, compact, heavy little machine.
Yeah. Heavier and louder than you expect it to be.
So much louder.
Yeah, it is kind of like this little Hoover vacuum pack. And like the disc, especially the disc drive, I think is the craziest part, right?
Well,
half the ones that I sell at the store, they come back the next day and they're like, is it supposed to be like, like, I think it's going to die. I'm like, no, it's fine.
It's exactly the way it's supposed to be.
I think the developers of Skies of Arcadia were like, we'd like to, we don't want to surprise anybody with a random battle because we could get sued. Why don't we have the system politely announce that there's about to be a battle in like 3 seconds? So Sega's like, all right, you got it. So walking around in Skies of Arcadia. Here
comes the battle.
Battle.
That's right. So the system itself, you got that in the box, and what struck me is that, it reminds me like the Sega box right before it, right? Like there's no styrofoam.
Yeah, it was like what do you call it? Like that little carton?
Yeah.
Kind of like a tray.
How disappointing.
Yeah, and it was just kind of like, sitting in that tray, and, you get your one controller, which this was kind of the time when a lot of parents were still, at least like I was working at Babbage's at the time, and a lot of people would come in, and, a lot of parents used to complain. They don't actually complain about this as much anymore. Why does it only come with one controller? Because for a long time, game systems came with, more than one. And, the answer you can give people is like, because it costs less, it costs, so it's like, what would you, like, if it had two controllers and cost $229, you'd say, why didn't it just come with one controller for $199, and then I could buy another controller if I needed it?
That's right, because Jimmy doesn't have any friends, so I don't need to.
So that's my new console policy too. Is I get one console controllers are like $100. I buy one controller. Bring your own.
Wait till your kids get older.
Nope.
Well, you gotta tell them, all right, son, you're 5. You're a man now. Go get a job and buy your own controller.
I'm going to say, son, You are the controller.
Jump in front of the Kinect.
Yeah. But yeah, so besides, so you get the system, you get your one controller in your, what do you call it? Like your little like cardboard carton. You got your AV cables, which is nice. You get your power cable. And that's all I remember getting in the box. Did they come with, what do you call it? They came with the dial-up modem in the box, right?
Yes, it had a modem built in. I think I want to say it was 56K modem.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Wow, which was blazing fast.
Did either of you guys play games online on Sega.net?
Yeah.
I did not.
Yeah.
Would you play Duke?
Oh gosh.
Did you play Sega Swirl?
No.
Fantasy Star.
I didn't play
PSO?
Sega Swirl. Yeah, that's right. That was it. I did PSO because we'll talk more about it later, but I love that game so much I bought the broadband adapter to play it once that was announced. So
yep. Again, we'll talk about it in the online portion of our show, but yeah, I was a big broadband adapter, Quake 3 mouse keyboard.
Ooh. And I think inside the box, didn't it come with the Planet Web browser?
Yes.
Disc, which also had like the Sega Net you could sign up for?
Yep, sign up for Sega Net. Yep, and later you got your web browser 2.0, which it wasn't like systems are today, where like the software was just on the system. It was a disc that ran the system, so you had to put in the disc to use the web browser. And the web browser did work, but again, with it being 56K. It wasn't with the combination of 56K and the keyboard not being available at launch, it wasn't, the least cumbersome way to browse the internet, in 1999, but it worked.
Yeah, I remember doing a little bit of browsing just for the novelty. And then I went, oh, okay, that's a thing.
Exactly. Hey, look, Alta Vista on the television. And then that was done.
I can't read anything, but okay. But it's on there. Look, Ma. Yep. So yeah, the package in the box was nothing too particularly fancy. I mean, the controller was well built. We'll talk more about the hardware and stuff a little bit later, but, yeah, I mean, that's it. When you bought the box on launch day, it was a little compact little unit. There was no frills, nothing much, but you got, I think, a lot for your money.
Oh yeah. I mean, this system, I mean, I know like, people talk about inflation versus what it's like now versus then, but like a couple $100. Like, this thing was great.
Yeah.
Were you guys both there on launch day?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
So what was going on in your household when Dreamcast launch hit? Were you too busy on the N64 or what?
Yeah, I was always behind. I didn't know that it launched until December that year. One of my friends finally got one.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, like I didn't know it existed until I went over his house. He didn't even like announce it or anything. We just came over. He's like, "Yeah, I got this thing." He didn't seem all that excited about it.
Really?
Yeah.
And were you blown away when you saw it?
Not blown away, but it was just, it's always fun to have new things to play games on. So we played a ton of it like that weekend, but yeah,
awesome.
Didn't have the impact on me that I think it had on many others.
Oh yeah. Well, Bill, I think you were a pre-orderer, right?
This is like the biggest prepay launch of my gaming career. I had pre-purchased this thing. It was paid for. I only recently had begun, really kind of like saving money, like when I was, working at my job. Cause like when you first get a job, it just goes to like, like junk food.
Pizza.
Exactly. Like,
gas.
Just awful things. So this is like the first, I was like, I'm going to save some money up and I'm going to do some good stuff with it. And then I bought a Dreamcast. So yeah, I had the system paid for. I think I wanted Air Force Delta, but I ended up like, at the last minute not getting it. I got, on launch day, I got House of the Dead 2,
Ooh.
Hydro Thunder, Mortal Kombat Gold, NFL 2K, Ready to Rumble Boxing, Sonic Adventure, and when I got there, the dude's like, "You didn't pre-order Soul Calibur?" And I was like, "Yeah, I heard it was supposed to be good. I just didn't know if there's going to be any available." And he's like, "Oh no, like we have them available." So I bought Soul Calibur. I had 3 additional controllers, pre-ordered and prepaid for. I had 1 VMU and 2 Rumble packs.
So that 200 like turned almost into 1,000 or what?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy.
But it didn't feel like that much. For like a year before it came out, like maybe like 6 or 8 months, but like for a long time before it came out, I would just like, go to the store. I would go to Babbage's and I would talk to those guys, and we would just, kind of like, talk about games and stuff. And I would just like keep adding money to my pre-order like stash. And right after the game, like right around the time the system came out, they gave me a job there. So I ended up, just, making that connection with those guys. And that's how I ended up working at Babbage's. But, that was, a super, super exciting time for me. I was still kind of, as the Sega fanboy from like the 16-bit era, you're kind of like, okay, it's kind of like every time a Sonic game comes out and Sonic fans are like, okay, this is going to be the one. It's going to redeem all the bad ones. So it's kind of like that with like the system. Like, all right, all of my suffering has been worth it for this system. And I love the Dreamcast. I still love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I also had pre-ordered, at, I want to say it was Electronics Boutique. And, what? I don't know. It's the only thing. It was the only thing close by.
What? Well, I worked at Babbage's, so you have to boo the other guys.
Oh, there was no Babbage's to compete with. So
yeah, they ended up merging. So.
And there was like Software Etc. somewhere. I think.
Oh yeah,
yeah. But
they're all GameStop now.
Yeah, pretty much. But I had pre-ordered for it because I want to say that a few days or maybe a week or so before it actually launched, they had one in the store that you could play, and they had the only game they had on was the bass fishing, the Sega bass fishing.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know why or how or whatnot, but I remember clearly playing Sega bass fishing before the thing came out. Didn't convince me to buy the bass fishing game, but I always thought that was pretty interesting to see that. I don't know if it was an import machine or I have no clue. But, yeah, I prepaid for that one. I didn't get any extra controls. I just had the one that it came with. And then I got Air Force Delta. I got Soul Calibur, of course, and, Sonic Adventure because of, I mean, you had to get the Sonic game because it was a Sega machine. And, I'd been a diehard Saturn guy for a long time. I was the one. So I'd stuck with that thing and played it to death, right up until its death. And I was really glad. I was so excited. I was like, this is it. This is going to knock him out of the park. This is going to be such a big win. And when I played it too, I was like, holy crap, this looks so awesome. There's no way. I'm like, everybody else is done.
So wait, you played the Saturn up into its death in 1994?
Hey. Like I've said before, I bought the last Saturn release at retail. So if that tells you anything, I had pre-ordered.
It does. I bought the last Dreamcast release at retail, and we'll talk about that.
What a mistake. So yeah, that was a big deal. And they really did a good job with marketing this thing, and the kind of the push. And, I think it was Bernie Stoller was the guy that was in charge of Sega at the time.
That's correct.
And he really, I think, did a good job at kind of making this a big thing.
Yep.
He got a lot of coverage, and everybody knew the PlayStation 2 was coming out soon, but there was no like firm details during the early time, and then by the time it was firm, it was kind of too late for Sega to change what they were doing.
And a lot of people hate Bernie for lots of reasons, but I don't think you can deny he, had a big impact on the Dreamcast on the business side of things.
No, he did I think a fantastic job considering what he had to work with. Which is, I'm sure what we'll talk some about later. But, so the Dreamcast launched on 9/9/99 in the US. It had the hardware that we talked about, and it had a big list of games that it came with.
Yes.
So let's go through real quick a few that we've mentioned a few, but let's go through the other ones. So we had Arrow Wings, Blue Stinger. You guys remember Blue Stinger?
I've played that one.
Wasn't that like the Resident Evil killer or whatever, right?
Tried to be.
Yeah, something like that. This one I don't remember. Cart Flag to Flags, that might have been a European title that came over here.
That was a Sega game. That was a Formula One racing game.
Oh, no wonder I don't know that one. Expendable? I don't know that one either.
Yeah, Expendable. It's a top-down twin-stick shooter. So your left stick is controlling your dude, and like I think your right is controlling your aim, and then your trigger is your shoot. It's kind of like almost like a top-down Contra.
Smash TV.
Yeah, that's probably a better description.
It's kind of like Loaded, something like that.
Yeah, it's just like tons and tons and tons of bullets. Shoot the things.
Awesome. You mentioned House of the Dead too. Hydro Thunder.
House of the Dead.
Yeah.
Hydro Thunder. Can I tell you how much I love Hydro Thunder in the arcade? This might have been my most anticipated game.
So did you play it a lot?
I know that's a weird thing to say.
No, it was a big deal.
Hydro Thunder's fun.
I love Hydro Thunder. I loved it in the arcades. I played it to death on the console until I could I've never got into an arcade style, racing game like this, until Burnout, and then, Hydro Thunder is amazing. I remember reading articles for Hydro Thunder 2 and being like, oh, it's going to be so great. And then it never happened.
Yeah. Well, they did have an arcade one eventually, I think, that came out. But, oh, no, it was an Xbox Live game. Was that it? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Yep.
And then Monaco Grand Prix. And Mortal Kombat Gold. Bill, I think you know the Mortal Kombat Gold story on launch.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I was huge on this game too, because I was a big Mortal Kombat dude. Now I bought this game at launch, and I've heard from many people that the launch one, it doesn't work.
Right. There was a batch or something of them that just literally wouldn't play, right?
Right. So what they did was, instead of re-releasing the game and saying, calling it Mortal Kombat Gold, the version that works, they printed this green, new low price sticker, right on the face of the game. So that's kind of how stores could differentiate. Okay. This is the new batch. We've fixed it. So the word, on the collector scene is, if yours doesn't have that new low price, there's a good chance that disc doesn't work. Now I've had good luck with, the copies that I've come across that don't have that. And my launch copy worked just fine. So I don't know, if it was every copy, but, there was definitely some issues with that. So if you're trying to be on the safe side, try to find that new low price, sticker.
Rot.
Yeah. It comes back.
The Spectre.
Comes back to haunt us.
Oh, man. The next one, I played so much frickin' NFL 2K. And I'm not a sporty sport.
Exactly. I'm not a football guy at all. I played a ton of this game.
This game was so much fun with my friends. They would come over to my house.
Do you remember the first time you played NFL 2K? Did he go to sleep?
Is he alive?
You're assuming I played NFL 2K?
Yeah.
I have never played NFL 2K in my life.
I think the only reason is because they didn't make CFL 2K.
There are two games on this list that I have played. I'm waiting to get to them.
Okay, I'll give you your shot.
All right, then we'll move on. NFL Blitz 2000. That was a thing.
Yep, not a fan.
Pen Triathlon. Oh, gosh.
I still see that a lot here.
I've never played that. That's literally penguins racing on their bellies, right?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, it looks like a Winter Olympics game with penguin-themed events.
It's terrible. It's really terrible. The next one, though, is not terrible. Power Stone. Power Stone, right? Woo. So, Krabby, tell us about Power Stone.
Is very good.
It was I don't even know, you had a 3D plane. It's kind of like Smash Bros. With an isometric view, and you can pick up crap from the environment, and the environments themselves usually have something going on to watch for that's gonna hurt you or your opponent that you can use to your advantage, and little crazy weapons dropping down, and it's just a crazy party fighting game.
Yeah, and it was a totally new Capcom fighting franchise just for Dreamcast. And Capcom did a good job of really supporting Sega on this machine.
Yes.
Which is kind of surprising, because
Capcom always starts strong with everybody, and then they peter off.
I guess maybe that's right. That's right. And then, oh man, I played this one. I'm sure probably lots of other people did too. Ready to Rumble Boxing. Did you guys play this one?
Played a lot of it on the N64, not on the Dreamcast.
Maybe we'll do an N64 podcast eventually.
Maybe. I'm sure we
That'd
probably
be
will.
No, I was saying, yeah, that'd be fun. Because you know what, I had actually totally forgotten that it came out for N64, but you're absolutely right.
And was there
Oh,
go
what's
ahead.
up?
I was going to say, was there a PS1 version? I don't remember.
Yes,
I think
there
so.
was.
Ew.
Yep. Yeah, so, I remember Ready to Rumble Boxing and NFL 2K as the ones where I really noticed the 60 frames per second. And it's hard to, talk about the impact that 60 frames per second had on the console generation at this time because, the PlayStation, I think there's like one or two games that have right real big in the front of the box, 60 frames per second. Like it's something that you can't really do. So seeing it was like, whoa, it's so different than everything you're used to. I remember Ready to Rumble when the fight starts, the camera kind of pans around the whole, ring and just the smoothness of that motion. I remember being so impressed with that. But yeah, I think I was, what's his name? Afro Eddie?
Yeah, he was like the main guy on the cover, right?
Yeah. Yep. Oh, and David Arquette, didn't he voice a dude in this game?
Boy, you're reaching. I don't know.
Oh, right. No. Sorry, that might have been SSX.
Okay, I have no idea. All right, and then we've talked a little about Sonic Adventure, but do you guys have anything else to throw in about Sonic Adventure?
I don't care for it.
It's great.
It's great, and I don't care for it.
No, those are two different people.
So, Krabby, why do you not care for Sonic Adventure?
Because it's not
Mario?
It's no. It feels to me like the whole game is Marble Zone Spring Yard Zone from the first one, where you're like just the first couple levels. You got some decent speed. It's fun. It's fast. It's exciting. And then all of a sudden you just stop, and it's like this. I don't feel like Sonic anymore. I felt like the whole game was like that, where I just couldn't go like I wanted to.
But there's a whale coming out at you.
Yeah, Crash Bandicoot style.
I've
He's
never
coming right
been a
for
fan
us.
of those games. I just can't get into them.
Bill?
Are you talking about Sonic or Crash?
Sonic Adventure.
Okay.
I love Sonic. I do not like Sonic Adventure.
I like Sonic Adventure a lot. I hear exactly where you're coming from though. When you play a Sonic game, it's not about I don't think Sonic games are about speed. I think they're about momentum.
Yes,
I think they're about
agreed.
getting up to where you want to be moving through the level and then keeping that going and only coming out of it when it's by choice. So if you decide to slow down and grab a power up, grab some rings, grab a thing, go find a hidden level, great. But if you want to go through the whole level without slowing down or stopping, you should be able to. And Sonic Adventure, it is much more difficult to go through a level with little to no slowdown, intentional slowdown. So I definitely see where people come from with that. I still think the games are really, really fun.
That was one where they introduced Biggs the cat, right?
Yeah, that's not my favorite part of the game either, because you kind of just want to play as Sonic, and then you're like, oh, you're a large cat who's not fast. Oh, because I thought I was playing Sonic just now, and now I'm Big the cat.
I know. I was like, well, and what is so he's just kind of
what's her?
Amy.
Yes,
Amy.
Yeah, thank you. And I think Knuckles was in there.
I don't know. I think it was Tails, but I don't remember Knuckles. Maybe he was.
Knuckles maybe the second one? I can't remember. It's been a while.
I don't know.
See, with the old Sonic games, they gave you Tails, they gave you Knuckles. It didn't matter. They all felt the same. So the new characters are fine with me. I still could run around as fast as I wanted. And this one, yeah, like you said, the cat's just, you're walking sluggishly everywhere.
Yeah.
He kind of reminds me of Kate Sith.
Yeah, okay, kind of. But not a robot. Right?
No.
Not a robot.
Like an organic Kate Sith.
I thought
nerd.
I thought it was a cat she. I thought that's how you're supposed to pronounce that, but
No, this is America. Well, for 2/3 of us, it's America.
All right. And the biggest thing I think I remember about Sonic Adventure is I think you kind of mentioned it in our little break, Bill, but the guitar riffs in that game.
Oh
man, somebody went to metal school that day, right?
Somebody, could you imagine, Bernie Stolar taking, Sega, and then he's like, yeah, the game's great, but we need some metal.
Yeah.
It's, I went to, the one year I went to E3, which I forget what year it was, but it was 3 or 4 years ago. Maybe a little bit longer than that by now. But, I went to E3 and, it was the Sonic Boom event. because it was like 25-year like Sonic anniversary. So I went to this event, and it was all like, it was official Sega event. So like all like the Sega like producers were there, and like they were working on Sonic Generations, and the composer was there, and he gets up on stage like with his guitar, and he's just killing it. He's playing like all different, so like he's playing like traditional like Genesis stuff, but like, just kind of like wailing away. So like, and then I read an interview after that. It's like, that's kind of how he writes all the stuff. And then like they have to convert it to like the 16-bit, like, like the chip for the Genesis. So he was really excited when he had the Dreamcast to work with, because he could just like wail away. So they just let him go crazy with it.
Yeah, obviously, and he did.
Yeah. Yeah, he went nuts. And that's one of the craziest, like, Japanese guys playing the guitar I've ever seen live in person. It was really, really cool.
Yeah, they're like, what kind of soundtrack? You know that Joe Satriani guy? Yeah, let's have a soundtrack just like that for our game. Sonic, because nothing screams Sonic like.
Get that.
Yeah. And then I think, to me, the probably defining game of launch is the next one, right? Soul Calibur?
Yep. It's gotta be.
So.
It's gotta, yeah.
Soul Calibur is a game that looks so good that it still looks so good when you go back and play it. I mean, I'm pretty amazed at how well that thing holds up. Have you guys played it at all recently?
Yeah, we did a Soul Calibur 2 tournament in the store recently, so I played a few of the different ones to just get into it again. And yeah, you're right. The first one still looks fantastic, and not just for a game that's that old, but for a launch game, it's really surprising.
Yeah. Bill, and you said this is one of the ones you picked up on launch?
Yeah, I hadn't really planned on it. But I heard a lot of good, like, I wasn't really into the Namco fighting games, but then as it got closer and closer to launch and it started getting all this great press, I didn't think you could get it without a reservation. But then the day, I go to pick it up, they were like, "Hey, do you want one? We have extras." And I said, "Yeah, sure, throw it in." So, I did pick this one up, and this was the biggest surprise for me. I mean, partially because I didn't, wasn't planning on getting it, but also I wasn't planning on liking it that much. And besides just being a fighting game, there's lots of cool single player modes, in this, just to like kind of move through, like unlockables and stuff, if you like stuff like that.
Yeah. And, had any of you guys played Soul Edge?
Nope.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, it was on PlayStation, but I'd never played it before. It was like not even on my radar.
Same. Never, like, I don't know if I ever heard of it, but it was absolutely not a thing that I was aware of.
Yeah, and then so all of a sudden it's just like, this game is the one to own. And it was. I mean, this thing was amazing. My friends would come over and we would just play this freaking thing forever. And I think the thing that stands out to me most, though, is that announcer voice, right? Which has kind of been a thing now for a while.
Did you guys keep him in English, or you switched him to Japanese?
No, English. That guy was great.
Yeah, it was funny, but like, I kind of feel like, and don't get me wrong, we did keep him on English most of the time. We did end up switching him off because it was like distracting during like tournaments.
Oh, man, come on.
But yeah, that's a great voice.
Welcome to the stage of history. He would always, the soul still burns.
Now, do you remember if you could change the voice of the announcer independently of the voice of the fighters?
I don't remember.
Because the fighters in English are unplayable.
It's pretty bad.
Oh man, it's the same thing like in like kind of like growing up on Street Fighter, where like someone wins a fight and it's like just grunting.
Yeah.
Just like stuff like that. Like when you win a fight and it's like, "You will never defeat me." Like it felt really like Mystery Science Theater to me.
Yeah, that was in the age of still pretty bad voice acting, but
we haven't really got out of that age.
In some cases, yeah, unfortunately not. But that was pretty amazing stuff, that Soul Calibur. And a few others just to round these out. If you guys want to stop on these, let me know, but I'm going to guess not. TNN Motorsports Hardcore Heat.
Keep it moving.
Any of you guys big Nashville Network fans?
Keep it moving.
Tokyo Extreme Racer.
Nope.
Yeah, it was a car game. Trick Style.
I remember this one. I've never played it.
Yeah, no, I have no idea. Krabby, nothing.
Nothing to add.
But let's look at the launch line. I mean, well, that's like probably like 20 games almost, or 15, 20 games there.
Yeah, good. And that's not window. That's like the day.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, I can't think of another console launch.
Nope.
Ever. Well, maybe the NES probably had about that many.
PlayStation 3 had like 4 demo discs and 2 games out on launch day.
Yeah, and I think the PlayStation 4 still has like 15 games. But
didn't the Wii U have like 18 or 19 launch day?
Are you counting Virtual Console?
Maybe.
No. It had a lot. A lot of them were like ports of games that had come out on other systems, but there was a lot
that's
there.
right. So like Mass Effect 3 and all that stuff.
Yeah,
that's
Mass
right.
Effect,
There was
Batman,
Arkham City,
Splinter Cell, Call of Duty. There was a
true.
lot of stuff that already come out. It was a big window, or not a big window, a big launch.
Just as a quick aside, I really want a Wii U. I watched the Bayonetta 2 Nintendo Direct.
Oh yeah,
I really want a Wii U.
Nope.
Anyway, back to the Dreamcast.
32 launch games the Wii U had.
Oh, well, that's really impressive then. I still remember my N64 when I pre-ordered it and picked it up. Yeah.
Your 2 games to choose from?
Yeah, 2. Do you want Pile of Wings or do you want Mario?
Hey, at least they were like just awesome. There was no filler there. They were both so good.
Mario 64 is so fantastic. And then there was a big thing, right? Because the Dreamcast had a little bit of a head start on the PlayStation 2, right?
Yeah.
And there were some launch difficulties with the PlayStation 2 at the time. Are
you getting to the ad?
I am getting to the ad, and I know Bill.
This is funny.
I put this in here because I know you. So, do you want
to?
You tell the story. You tell the story.
It's funny. Okay, so the PlayStation 2, if you didn't live through that launch, there were like 40 PlayStation 2s available in the country.
Yeah, just about.
From like September to March of the next year. Like, we're talking, like, you've never seen console shortages like this. Like,
yeah.
People who've been gaming the last like 10, 15 years, you've been through like the Wii launch, the Wii U, the 360, I guess, 360 was maybe a little bit further back.
PS3 was pretty bad.
Yeah, PS3 was even, but like, we're talking literally, like, I think our store got like, I don't know, like 13 or 14 of them. And like, that was it for the year. You could not find PlayStations anywhere.
Yeah, I had to camp out to get a PlayStation 2.
And a lot of people said, like, that they were trying to create artificial demand. Sony insisted, like, no, like, we're having like severe, like, hardware, like quality issues, like getting this many parts in working quality from our, parts distributors. So because the Dreamcast was also out and had no shortage of stock because they, were using parts that weren't like, designed by like lasers and like all these like complex bits that
just chiseled right out of rock.
Yep. They put out this full page ad in a whole bunch of like gaming magazines with this like little redheaded freckly faced kid. And like it just said like our condolences to Sony on their like launch window hardware difficulty, and he's just sticking his tongue like straight out. Like, no one does that. Have you ever seen any other company like, like, did you guys hear Coke over the summer? You know how they put all the names on the Coke cans?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So apparently they recalled the Michaels or the Mikes because an employee at the factory dumped like a bag of like soil in the batch that like made the Michael cans because she was pissed off at her boss, Michael. So like that's why you can't find any Michaels anywhere. They recalled them, and like they started getting complaints, and they started realizing, oh, it's all the Michaels is where this stuff went. Could you imagine Pepsi putting out an ad? Oh, our sincere sympathy for Coke in their time of need, and have like a bunch of women like gardening and like shoveling soil.
I don't know. I mean, I got to give it to Sony a little bit with the big thing they did with this is how you share
the
games.
sharing video. Yeah.
On PS4.
That was fantastic.
It was pretty close to that. Minus the kid with his tongue stuck out, but it was pretty close.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't care for that.
You didn't think that was funny?
No, didn't care for it.
Oh, I laughed so hard at that.
I don't have a PS4. I have an Xbox One. I laughed at that joke. It was funny. It was a funny joke. But yeah, so I mean, it was the thing. It was Dreamcasts were not hard to find. I mean, at launch, you could find the software pretty well. The consoles were not terribly difficult. And then definitely by the time the PlayStation 2 came along, there was quite a few of them around for the holiday season, and PlayStation 2s were nowhere to be found. I honestly believe it probably had more to do with the Japanese market than it had to do with anything else. I imagine they probably kept more stock for the Japanese market than they cared to release over here. But that's pure speculation. So, Dreamcast launch went well, right? It went really well. They sold a lot of units. So things looked good. Things looked really good. So let's talk about some of the hardware. So the system sold well. It was out in the market. It was doing pretty well. And there was a lot to talk about with the hardware, which is surprising, especially for a system with as short a lifespan as this thing had. So the games themselves were on a proprietary format called a GD-ROM, right?
GD-ROM.
Which stood for Gigabit Disc, right?
Yep, it was co-developed by Yamaha, if I remember correctly.
That's exactly how they pronounce it, Yamaha.
Yamaha. And if I remember, their concern was that compact discs, besides having, like only 700 meg capacity, and they wanted closer to like 1.2 or 1.3 gigabytes, they thought that piracy was going to be a problem.
Oh, because it was rampant on the PlayStation 1 and Saturn.
Right.
Rampant.
Especially if you had like remember the Game Shark that you could plug in the back of the original PlayStation 1 that you could like bypass the copy protection just by booting to it?
Oh, and mod chips were everywhere.
Right. And you could, so there was all sorts of stuff. So I thought it was really smart that they went to this GD-ROM format and then kept compatibility with CD-ROMs.
Yeah.
So you could just still do all the things they said were the reason that the only thing you couldn't do was put a game on a CD that was obviously over 700 megabytes. But like, I thought it was really weird. They were like, no, CDs, we don't want to do anything with CDs because of piracy. And then the format they come up with, it reads CDs too. Don't worry about it.
Well, because playing music CDs was still a big thing at the time, right?
Right. And there was no like authentication on CDs. Yeah, that was really weird. I think it's the same thing as like the web browser. You loaded it up, you did it once, and then same with Sega CD. You loaded it up, you played it once, and then you just turned it off and played games. I
don't know. I mean, I didn't have another CD player for a long time. My Sega CD was my music player for a while. But
I listen to music in their house. Don't you like put on your headphones and go for a run?
Well, you had a headphone jack on the Sega, man. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's why you got the CDX.
Yeah.
You put that in
you
there.
got it on the go.
Man, I had my Walkman for the go. What are you talking about? It's my cassette Walkman.
I have my Nomad for the go.
But yeah, so they came up with a GD-ROM, and so it was a unique, proprietary format that they came up with. Interesting. We've already talked about the modem, certainly. 56K modem right out of the box. So I think this was extremely ahead of the game when it comes to other consoles, right?
For its time, yes. And even including the PlayStation.
Yeah, we didn't see this in the box again until Xbox.
Yeah. With that NIC wired network interface included just right on the system.
Yeah. So extremely forward thinking there. They saw the future. They saw what was going on in the PC market, because at the time, people were playing, online games. Doom, you were calling into your buddy's house to play Doom or whatever. So it was a big deal. And they also had some experience, of course, because there was the NetLink for Saturn, right? So they'd done this for a little bit. And then I guess, you could even go back farther to X-Band, but that wasn't them. And then, of course, we've talked a little about the controller, but the interesting thing with the system and the controller, there was 4 controller ports, and I think as we mentioned before, there were 2 slots in the top of the controller, right?
Yep.
And so these controller slots could hold different items, right?
Yep. The 2 most common are the visual memory unit commonly referred to as the VMU, and the Jump Pack, which was kind of like the Rumble Pack. Now, the Jump Pack, I do remember being like a little bit hard to find right at launch, but I was able to procure one. Don't worry. Now, the cool thing about having 2 slots is if you only had one controller, because the system only came with one, and, your friend came over, you wanted to copy, files or save files from one thing to the other, you were able to do that with just one controller. So that was kind of cool. But normally, I think the kind of the de facto setup is you have a VMU in the front and then the Rumble Pack in the back for Rumble. And the VMU was interesting because it was kind of like its own little, had its own little tiny analog D-pad and a couple buttons on it. The idea was games could, kind of download mini games to these things that you could, maybe like advance your, creature in a game that supported, like creature building, and then after you played it for a bit, re-import it to the game. So that was kind of a cool idea. I don't remember any game that really made fantastic use of that feature. But there were a lot of games that used, that displayed something on the VMU while you were playing that were kind of helpful.
But yeah, the VMU I think was pretty revolutionary at the time because PlayStation had memory cards, so you could take that to your friend's house or whatever.
Boring.
Yes, but this was cool because it was in your controller. So even if you were going to your friend's house or something, you could take your whole controller if you needed to, right? If you didn't have an extra one, and your saves and everything were already in there.
And didn't some of the games actually have games you could play on the VMU? Didn't Sonic have kind of a nano pet kind of feature?
Yeah, that's Sonic Adventure.
Right, weren't they called
chows?
I'm not gonna remember it.
Chows.
Yeah, because it was kind of like Chaos, but it was no, they're chows.
Yeah.
So you had your chow, and you could hatch him, and you could feed him food, and I have no idea why you wanted your chow to do better because it didn't affect the game.
But remember, Tamagotchis were a thing, right? So.
Oh yeah. There's such a thing.
Yeah, this was kind of and you get a Tamagotchi game. Look at this.
I guess they were a thing. I was more excited that because in NFL 2K, you could pick your plays on that without anybody knowing.
Yeah, on the screen.
And the other one that got me was Resident Evil.
Oh,
Code Veronica.
Yeah.
Had your life, your heart rate monitor, on there. So if you didn't have to go into the pause screen to check your life. You could just see it right on the controller. I thought that was cool.
Never had to check your health in Resident Evil. You limped. That was your health meter.
We're not all as good as some people who just you don't have to check your health. Just beat the game. Just finish it.
You can tell there's 3 different walking speeds. There's regular walk. There's slight limp, and there's severe limp, and that's green, yellow, red health.
Well, then how come Isaac has a glowing back monitor?
Isaac, are we talking Dead Space
he
now?
Still hasn't played it.
It's because he's a wuss. He's not Claire. He's not Jill.
That's right. He can't wear a tube top around and
a machine gun.
That's right. But yeah, so the VMU had its own, memory and could play games and had, of course, then batteries of its own.
Do you guys remember the Sega eventually came out with the 4X VMU?
No. I remember it was third-party ones, but...
Oh, no, yeah, this was official Sega 4X VMU for people who had so many game save files that you needed. So there was... It was weird. It was still called a VMU, but there was no V on it. They took the screen out.
Oh, I see.
And instead there were just 4 red LEDs that you would press a button and it would switch to,
Are you sure that was official?
VMU.
I just looked it up. He's
totally right.
Really? I'm 100% sure that it was official because I bought it.
Wow. I remember a bunch of knockoffs doing that, but
yeah, believe it or not, they got the idea from Sega. It was a weird thing, and
wow,
it's official. It's got a little button on the top.
I've never seen one.
Yeah, they're there.
Oh, I'll have to watch out for that one.
4X VMU.
Awesome. And then those that don't know, when we talk about Jump Pack, Jump is a Rumble Pack. They just called it the Jump Pack for some reason because it made your controller jump. I don't know.
Yeah,
you didn't jump. Your controller jumped.
But if you were playing, because it can play audio CDs, if you were playing Crisscross's Totally Crossed Out, on your Dreamcast at the time, then Crisscross would make your jump pack jump.
As long as you had your clothes backwards and you were making your own video. Yes, I think you're right.
Yeah, they have a long history with Sega.
That's right. And Saturn, they also came out. I'm sorry, not Saturn. Dreamcast, they also came out with an arcade stick that had the slots, a slot for VMU, right?
Yep.
So it was a pretty nice.
Did you buy that, Chris?
I didn't, but I have one now in that big lot that you say I ripped a guy off for. So.
Oh, good. Good for you.
So now don't worry, I've ripped him off and I have a Dreamcast arcade stick.
They don't get this show in Japan, do they? Because
No.
he'll never find you. But no, yeah, now that's the one with the green buttons, right?
Yeah, it's like it's all like kind of green.
Did Sega make it? Because it looks a lot like Hori sticks nowadays. Did Hori have anything to do with that one?
I don't know if they had anything to do with it. It's a Sega product, but it does look a lot like a Hori stick. You're right. It's pretty well made, so that's pretty cool. And there was a lot of good fighting games on Dreamcast, so and I'm sure we'll talk about some favorites in a minute, definitely.
Oh yeah.
And then this is definitely the one to me that stood and made the system shine. And that's
literally.
Yeah. The VGA box, right?
Yep.
First,
now, I never had an official one.
Yeah, never had an official. There was an official one, but
yeah, I've heard that. I've never seen one, but yeah, I had a third party, and man, oh man, playing Dreamcast games on VGA.
Oh wow,
was an experience.
Now, they actually made me a little sad. I got one a little while ago, and was so pumped for it, and didn't realize that it only works on specific games.
Yes.
And so we do these things at the store where people just come and hang out, and we have the games set up, and I brought a big stack of Dreamcast games, so pumped, put the VGA box in, and like one of the games I brought was supported by it.
Let me help you out. You can download it. You can get boot discs that will allow you to run almost any game in VGA mode.
Too much work.
You burn a CD.
Put a disc.
That's it.
Yeah.
Too much work.
I'll mail you the disc.
You pop it in.
All you have to do
swap
is
discs.
put it in.
Yeah, almost all the games.
I don't remember the compatibility. I remember that there were certain games that didn't work with it. I don't remember the compatibility being that bad, though. I remember like almost every game I put into it working.
It was always a thing on the back. It would tell you if it worked with VGA. Yeah. But in reality, I think most games will. It's just they didn't have the code at boot to do that. But if you use the little disc trick, you can get almost all of them to go in VGA mode.
Nice.
Yeah, and this is, oh my gosh, beautiful. To this day, I mean, that's how I have my Dreamcast hooked up to my flat screen, right? It's just VGA. You can still do that.
Yep. Yeah, they've got the connection.
And it's still gorgeous to look at.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember, back when you had like the giant CRT VGA,
Oh, yeah,
monitors.
That looked great.
And yeah, you'd be playing Soul Calibur and you're like, oh my God, this 14-inch VGA monitor. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. Sidestep throw.
Yeah. But the VGA boxes also had S-Video built in as well. So you could do both.
Pronounced S-Video.
Okay. Yeah.
Like SNES.
Oh gosh, let's not get started. They also, as we alluded to before, they released a broadband adapter, and I want to say this was mail order only add-on.
You know what? I honestly don't remember.
I want to say
I had one.
That would make sense because they are worth a pretty penny these days.
They are expensive.
Yeah. I definitely had one, but now that you mention it, I don't remember ever seeing one in the store ever. So I probably did order it.
Yeah, I ordered mine from Sega and got it in, and I don't even think when I got it, it had like a box. I think it was just like, here's a thing in a little piece of cardboard that we shipped you with some instructions. Awesome. I don't think there was like an actual like retail box that I had, at least. I don't know if it ever did at some point in time, but because they had just gotten cable internet like at the apartments that I was at the time, and I was like, oh my God, I gotta get this. And there's not a lot of games that natively support it though, right? Just a handful.
Yeah, really just a handful.
It was like Quake 3 Arena, Alien Front Online.
Oh yeah, it came out very late. That's one of the other microphone games. Alien Front Online. There was not online multiplayer in, I think, just like one or two of the very last fighting games that came out for it, but not like the Marvels or the Capcoms, SNKs or any of those.
And the big deal, I remember I got it again because of Phantasy Star Online, which I'm sure we'll talk about here in a minute. But it didn't support it at all. You actually had to go about this weird way of downloading some save file from a Japanese thing into your VMU through the web browser, and that's how you could make it work. It was crazy. But it worked. It
really sounds a lot like the what do you call it? Like the mod scene on PC.
I guess so you'd have to download a configuration file.
Yeah, the game is not supposed to support that, but
yeah, just hack it in there.
If you do this.
Yeah, I guess maybe because maybe the Japanese release or something, the code was in the game. It's just you had no way of basically setting up your, like your DNS and all that stuff. So
right.
Once you could hack that basic information in about your internet connection, then away you went. And it was fantastic. Krabby, any broadband adapter? You ever mess with that?
No, like I said, I only had one buddy at the time who had it, and I didn't even know they had a web browser until way after the Dreamcast was done. It was just something we never found in. He always had a computer in his room right next to the thing, so it wasn't something we were interested in.
Oh, I see. Man, if you guys still had broadband adapters, we could still do some Phantasy Star Online. That would be fantastic.
I got a dial-up one.
Oh, come on, man. Long distance charges to Canada would eat me alive.
You guys know Destiny's out, right?
Whatever. And then they had the keyboard, right?
They sure did, and now I've got it.
Oh, yeah.
So, the broadband adapter, keyboard, obviously, for games like Quake and Unreal, kind of your WSAD, first-person shooter games, that was one of the big deals for it. But Phantasy Star Online, Chris,
just wait, what is WSAD?
It's WASD, don't you know?
Those are the keys on the keyboard.
Okay.
That you rest your hands on to walk forward, backward, and strafe left and strafe right. For those who aren't as familiar with PC first-person shooting practices.
I thought it was an acronym for something until you started saying
white Anglo-Saxon douchebag.
Depression. So WASP. So for your WSAD, or ASD, however Krabby wants to say it, tab for score, space for jump, control for crawl. So besides those, because Phantasy Star Online, there wasn't voice chat at the time, but you could walk up to another player and type something out and, be able to communicate with people that way.
Yes.
So that was, another big deal for the time.
That's why I bought it. And then, they also had to go along with that a mouse, right? It's basically you had like a computer.
Yep. And honestly, so that experience of walking up to a person and then really cumbersomely typing something to them and then waiting for a response. Not to poo-poo on Sony at all, but that's what PlayStation Home still feels like to me.
That's still a thing.
I've heard that they're killing it in certain territories, and I said the same thing. I was like, that's still the place where people go?
I think I turned that on once and went, oh, this is terrible.
You want to know who all the serial killers are in the world? Go to PlayStation Home right now. They're all planning awful things.
All stalking the few children that show up on the service unaware.
With their PS2 keyboard. But what about, did you get Typing of the Dead?
Eventually. But, that was a great thing. I think we've talked about that one before, but man.
Oh man, yeah. It's available on PC now and it makes perfect sense. But, I remember having the keyboard and thinking, oh, I can't wait till Typing of the Dead comes out. Typing of the Dead. And, it's a really quirky, just silly little game that, I believe I ended up importing it. Did the US get a version?
Of Typing of the Dead? Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I couldn't wait. I got the Japanese version.
Were you typing Japanese words?
No, it was
Konnichiwa!
No, yeah, it's English was an option, so they must have known I was going to do it.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. They also had the fishing controller.
This is the only thing for the, like, official thing for the Dreamcast that I'd never owned.
My local store has one box, and I keep walking by it. I think one of these days I'll probably just pick it up.
It's a quirky novelty piece. I just have zero interest in the game or in looking at it ever. But yeah, it's a fishing rod.
It was Wii before Wii.
Yeah.
Yep.
You have the wheel, the reel.
Yes.
And like you cast.
Yeah.
And then that's the game.
Yeah, it was the Wii remote before the Wii remote.
But only without the motion tracking. It's just like a motion sensor inside.
Yeah, really basic. I think very basic motion sensor.
Oh man, do you know anyone in the world who has ever said, "Man, I really love that Sega Dreamcast fishing controller and Sega Bass Fishing"?
No, no. But I don't know anybody that fishes either. So there you go.
This next one was a blast and a super underrated thing.
What is it?
The Samba de Amigo Maracas.
That's such a great game.
You guys ever play Samba?
Of course.
Oh, man. Samba, I remember, like, a friend of mine telling me about it, and I was like, I don't know, it sounds pretty stupid. Because, like, at the time, I was too cool for school.
Yeah.
You know when, like, you're that age when you're like, no, I'm too cool for everything. So he's telling me about it, and I'm like, dude, I'm not shaking maracas, like, left and right and forward and back. And he's like, dude, it's really awesome. He's like, every night I go home, I close all of the blinds in my house, and I play Samba de Amigo for like an hour or two. And I eventually tried it, and he was totally right.
Yeah, it was Just Dance before Just Dance, right?
Yeah, they're everything before everything.
That's right. Sega was a real innovator at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Krabby, you Samba de Amigo?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was such a wacky thing. Like, oh, well, let's just make maracas as controllers.
The maraca controller.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there was Donkey Konga later, but yeah, I was just like
Donkey
a crazy
Konga
game
before Donkey Konga.
That's right. There you go. But there wasn't. Was there ever a Samba de Amigo 2?
I think they just remade it on the Wii. I don't think they've actually done a sequel to it.
I don't know if they ever did, but it's strange to make a controller just for that, but they did, so it was pretty cool. And then lastly, talk about hardware. Let's talk about the one that we did not get in the US. Came out in other territories. We did not get the light gun.
That's right, not Sega's.
No.
I got the Interact one with like the dual orange triggers.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the only one that, I mean, there were a few, but that's the only one, I waited a long time for the Sega guns, and then when it was clear it wasn't going to happen, I was like, alright, I guess I'm getting these Interact deals. Yeah,
which is weird, because, at launch, they had House of the Dead 2.
Yeah.
And no gun.
Yeah. It was just like playing, Ground Zero Texas on Sega CD.
But if memory serves, the reason we didn't get that in the US is because this launched right after Columbine.
Oh, that's very well could be true.
Was that 99?
Yeah, it was around there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say it was somewhere right around there. And so guns were not something we wanted kids playing with at the time, because certainly video games were responsible for Columbine, right? We all remember that. Yep. Doom and whatnot. That was getting a lot of blame for that. So, Sega, I guess wisely for their, they didn't want to face any heat from anybody, so they opted not to bring out a light gun here. But other territories, they did get it. So we missed out. And from what I understand, you could import it and it worked fine. But we had the third parties. All right, so moving up next, we want to spend a little time talking about some standout titles. So these can be either our personal favorites or maybe some of the more collectible titles for the system. So let's go through some of these. So, Krabby, I know you've added some of these in here that you're interested in, right?
I did indeed. So
start us out.
I actually made my own list that you guys aren't looking at.
Ooh, special.
So it can be a surprise.
I like it.
Nice. So probably my favorite Dreamcast game of all time is Bangai-O. and it is both collectible and awesome.
So tell the folks about Bangai-O.
You play like this little tiny mech, and you can switch between like there's a brother and sister in the game, and so the boy, he can shoot missiles out of him, and they kind of heat seek, not very well, but he shoots so many missiles out that they just kind of generally go towards something and you'll probably hit them. And the sister shoots laser beams out, which go in a straight pattern, but as soon as they hit a wall, they ricochet.
Awesome.
So he's usually more helpful in wide open areas, and she's helpful in smaller tunnels and stuff because it'll bounce through the tunnels and hit things. And they are just the most ridiculous, over-the-top action. Like, there's so much slowdown in this game because there's so many ridiculous things on screen at once all the time. It's so addictive and fun. And you'll know right away if you like it or not. Like, the first level is... there's this quick, short arcade-style stages, and there's a whole bunch of them. And they actually link together a story that also makes no sense and is poorly translated, but funnily so.
There's some English in there.
Oh, tons of it. and then so that gives you incentive to go back and try and top your score as well if you're into high scores. But yeah, I found it so easy to pick up and addictive and just nonstop action. And even if you die, because the levels are so short, some of them are pretty hard, but they're so short that it doesn't feel too bad to go back and start it over and try and do better the next time.
So did you pick this one up back in the day, or has this been more a recent acquisition for you?
No, this one I actually got from Isrit several years ago when he was selling things, like it's probably 6 years ago.
Okay.
And he was selling off all his like disc-based stuff.
Smart man.
Other than Mortal Kombat items.
Disc rot.
Yeah. And I picked up a big lot of Dreamcast stuff from him, and I'd only had maybe half a dozen games until that point. And this was the highlight of that purchase. Like, just still my favorite Dreamcast game.
Fantastic. Now, there was another Bangai-O game came out later
for the DS, I think.
DS, yeah. I knew there was another one that came out at some point in time, but it's cool when the series like that gets a little more love eventually, right? Because that's just not very common, not very easy to find, right?
Right. Yeah, that one, like I said, it's both collectible and fun. It's one of the... Not that there's any super expensive Dreamcast games, but it's one of the higher ones.
Certainly. Bill, what do you got for me?
In no particular order, the Choo Choo Rocket.
Choo Choo Rocket. Yeah.
I really, really like Choo Choo Rocket. I read a great review for it and wasn't on my radar, so I said, okay, like whatever, I'll give it a try. And I remember when I first played it, like I just thought like it was a little bit too fast paced and frantic and I couldn't get a handle on it. Until I kind of realized that's the point. Like that's kind of how they want you to play it. Like you're never 100% in control. So in a nutshell, Choo Choos, CHU, are small, like little mice creatures.
Yeah. Such a simple game.
Right. So like mice are released into like but like not just a few, like a whole ton, like, you know, kind of 30, 40 a second, like they're running, are all released into your little kind of like, you know, quadrant of the screen. It's a 4-player game, up to 4 players. And basically what you can do is you can move your cursor around, almost like a chessboard looking area. And the face buttons, you know, so like the A, B, X, Y buttons. So like if you press the top button, then you place an arrow that, you know, goes up. The left goes left, the right goes right, the down goes down. You're trying to read, if the choo-choos like hit one of these things that you put down, they change direction. So basically you're trying to collect all these choo-choos so that you can launch your rocket, like be the first to launch your rocket up in outer space. And it's just a really silly Japanese, like real quick, you know, like arcade style, like 4-player competition game. And it's one of the only things that I ever got, like my brother and my sister all to like get in a room and say, you guys want to play Choo Choo? And then, yup, we're playing Choo Choo. And, it's really, really kind of like a frantic, you know, oddball little game that, I think it's really pretty common. You can probably find it for a few bucks. So if you have a Dreamcast and you haven't played it and you were looking for like a quirky little kind of multiplayer deal, it's worth a look.
And by the single player that I've played seems more puzzle based, Not quite as fun and frantic.
Right. It's kind of like, okay, like do this in this many moves or like kind of thing.
Watch out
almost
for
like
the
a
cats, right?
Right. Almost like a Tetris Attack puzzle mode. Like, like solve this puzzle in 8 moves or whatever. Yeah, I didn't play a ton of the single player, but I do remember it kind of being like that.
So a lot of love for Choo Choo crabbing.
I like Choo Choo. Yeah, I really do.
I've never had the chance to experience it multiplayer, and I have to say the single player did not make a big impact on me.
Okay.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, I didn't remember it. So.
It's time to plug in some controllers at the store and get some people to play some multiplayer Choo Choo, right?
Oh, yeah.
Done.
All right. Well, the first one I wanted to touch on is probably the one that I spent the most time with, probably period, in my Dreamcast, and that was Capcom versus SNK Millennium Fight 2000. I just remember that announcer's voice so much. This game was, this whole versus thing that Capcom had been doing for a while, and they were doing this thing where there was going to be Capcom versus SNK and then SNK versus Capcom, where each side would kind of do the other side's characters in their art style, or whatever, and then make a game around it similar to their style. And so Capcom versus SNK was like Capcom styles with SNK characters brought in, but not quite as simple. I mean, there was a pretty complex game, and the thing I loved about this one was there were so many secrets and unlockables in this thing, because you would earn like these points that you could spend in a store to get like special characters and like extra costumes and items. And I mean, it really kept you coming back and playing. I don't know why on earth this never has been integrated into other games, because, well, now you just make you pay for DLC, but I mean, this kept me playing this game like crazy. And I just really loved Capcom versus SNK. Did you guys play this one?
Yeah. It didn't make as big an impact on me as it did with you.
No, really?
No, I played it. Like, it was fun. It was good. Solid. I don't know what it was about it. We just moved on to other fighters pretty quickly.
Phil,
I'm
any
not
Capcom?
I'm not a huge fighter guy. There are like 4 or 5 fighters on this system that I spent a ton of time with. This is just not one of them.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
I played a lot of Capcom SNK2 on PS2. No particular reason why, that versus Dreamcast, just that's what we had it on. That's what we kept playing it on. But yeah, this one on the Dreamcast, I didn't get into.
Yeah, and I played 2, I think on original Xbox, but I was disappointed. 2 was not as good as the original. It didn't have all these unlockable things like that store kind of idea. It was just kind of like, here's a fighting game, go at it. But I really loved Capcom vs. SNK on Dreamcast. It was a fantastic game, and I don't think it's terribly expensive, so, check it out. It's a good one. Crabby, what else you got?
Let's move into some shooters then.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, one of my favorites is Gigawing.
All right, Gigawing. That's definitely a Japanese shooter, right?
Oh, yeah. Have you played it at all?
Just a little bit, but I wouldn't say I've spent a lot of time with it.
Is Gigawing the one where you can absorb bullets?
No.
Oh. Which one's that?
Ikaruga for GameCube is what I think what you're thinking of.
Yeah, it was on Dreamcast in Japan, but not here.
Oh, okay.
Gigawing is, I think it's an awesome game to introduce people to shooters, because it's just, everything seems big and flashy and fun. And even when you die on the first level, which you usually do when you're new to shooters, your score will be like 40 billion points. And you don't have to really upgrade your weapons to do massive, like your normal guns take up like 3/4 of the screen. Like, it always feels like you're big and strong and powerful and you've got an awesome score, and it's, right off the bat, they have it unlocked so you can have infinite credits. So you can just throw it in with a buddy who's never played shooters, and you guys can have a blast for 30 minutes and you're done the game.
And this is another one of those harder to find ones, right?
I think the second one more so than the first one, but they're both, $40, $50 games now, I think.
Yeah. Man, shooters really tend to hold their value pretty well if they're at least halfway decent on systems, right?
Yep, absolutely.
I think fans of shooters are willing to pay the extra bucks for a good shooter. And I don't think as many of them sell, but I think the people who want those shooters, like, they're willing to, put the money out there.
Yeah. I'd definitely say the prices definitely support that. For sure. Cool. Bill, what you got?
They might seem a little obvious, but I'm going to go Crazy Taxi 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So, yeah, as a big Offspring fan, I have to. So beside, like, and what's the biggest surprise for me on Crazy Taxi is that the mode I played the most wasn't, like, arcade mode. It was, like, the mini games mode, where it's, like, the Crazy Box or whatever it was called, where, like, you had to, like, knock over, like, like bowling pins and, like, launch your car, like, on, like, a ski jump, like, as far as you could.
Not fall off the incredibly narrow turns.
Oh, man. Oh, yeah. Oh, man. I remember you did that. And, like, I remember because you fall off those turns. And, like, everyone's, like, laughing and, like, oh, you fell off the thing and the Offspring music's going. But, like, you fell into this, like, black abyss. And I remember thinking, like, those people are dead. But yeah, oh man, we stayed up. That's one of those, like, all-nighters, like, passing the controller around, like, just trying to get, like, like, up your score or, like, do it a little bit better than the last guy on one of those. And then, it's not Dreamcast anymore, but, like, eventually when Crazy Taxi 3 on original Xbox, they kept that going. They call it the Crazy X. And it was, it was Crazy Box, it was Crazy Pyramid was in, Crazy Taxi 2. And then, later it was the Crazy X, but, like, all those, like, mini games that, like, had you driving in the Crazy Taxi style. If you have Crazy Taxi 1 or 2, and if you have a Dreamcast, you probably do, cause they're, like, they're pretty good selling games, and, like, there's a lot of copies out there. If you haven't played those, like, mini game modes, they are fantastic.
Yeah, Crazy Taxi was really big in the arcades as well, and then this home version was basically the game. Because Sega did reuse the hardware a bit, right?
Yeah, I really, I was looking forward to them, like, cause all these great games that were in the arcades at the time were Sega, so I was thinking, oh, Star Wars Arcade, Star Wars Trilogy, will totally be coming to, Dreamcast, cause it was, it was a Sega thing, it was in arcades. And it didn't, which, I always kind of thought that it would. But, yeah, Crazy Taxi, 18-wheeler, American Pro Trucker, yeah, a lot of Sega stuff that was in the arcades. Some stuff better than others.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, Crazy Taxi, I mean, I was a big fan of it in the arcades and, ended up being surprised by the additional modes in the, Dreamcast version. So, big fan.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, Crazy Taxi is just one of those games that's almost ubiquitous that,
oh yeah.
It's like the Keith Courage of the Dreamcast or something. You about have to have one.
Yeah. I don't know
At
if
least
you see
it's
it
better than Keith Courage.
Yeah.
Thank God.
I don't know if you see it quite as often as you do Keith Courage, with a system, but yeah, definitely, like, it's hard to mention the system without mentioning, CT.
Yeah.
I think Pen Triathlon is the Keith Courage.
Not down here, buddy. NFL 2K is the game. That's with every Dreamcast.
Up here. We like our games with ice in them.
I was thinking the same thing. In Canada, like, there's like, oh, penguins. I have to buy that.
Sweet. It's our national bird. Oh, man. Okay. Up next, I want to take a minute and I want to talk a little bit about Skies of Arcadia before Krabby poo-poos it. Skies of Arcadia, to me is... Oh man, I loved this game. It was put out by a division of Sega. They'd split their dev teams up and they'd given them names. And I want to say that this was Overworks, who did, Skies of Arcadia, but, fully 3D rendered RPG in which you're these sky pirates. And, the world is kind of set on these floating islands.
That's why Krabby doesn't like it.
That's
Pirates.
Pirates.
It all
makes
together.
sense now.
That's right. It's all coming together. But you are Vise, a sky pirate, and you have a couple, people that you're going with. You have your friend. I can't remember her name right off the top of my head.
The orange-haired girl?
Yeah. And then there's this other gal that's a part of, like, the main plot, this princess or whatever, and she comes into your party, and that's what the main story kind of follows. Of course, evil empires and whatnot. And the massive disc noise that Bill referred to earlier.
What's her name? Aika?
So
I can't remember.
Tika? I don't know. Somebody look it up while
That's how memorable they were.
Yeah. Well, I remember Vice because he was in.
Krabby, what about Final Fantasy 12? You like that one?
No, Chris is a big 12 guy.
Oh, Pirates. Another one he doesn't like.
Oh my goodness. But the idea that you fly around to these different areas on your ship, and the cool thing I think about this was, of course, you had like the normal random battle sort of stuff. You had these other kind of ship battles that you would do, and they had also like these secret items in the sky where like if you would get really close to where a secret was, like your compass would start spinning around like crazy. And I think if you had one of the jump packs, it would vibrate and you could find these hidden items. There were like tons of them that were hidden around. But, it was a good quality RPG, which a lot of systems were lacking, if you ask me, at the time.
Absolutely. If there's any genre that's lacking on the Dreamcast, it's sports and RPGs.
There's actually more on there than I thought when I was looking through it. I think there's just not as many good ones.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. But it's a great game, good enough that there was a GameCube remake later on with some additional content. So I would encourage everybody. It's not a cheap game, but then again, like you said, Krabby, there's nothing for Dreamcast that's crazy expensive. So I think it's well worth picking up. And I think you sold Mike one, right?
Just very recently, yeah.
Yeah, you showed a picture of that. So good job. It knows quality. So, Bill, I know you've said you've played Skies of Arcadia, right?
Yeah, and I think you've said everything that can be said about it. It's a solid game. It was well received in pretty much every place that I was looking for an opinion on it, except for GameQuest. It's solid. I mean, it is a shame that like that's the one defining factor that I remember on it is like, oh, here comes a battle. But in a time when like I had finished Final Fantasy VII, it was obviously a couple previous generation, but like Final Fantasy VII, 8, 9. Grand Stream Saga, Legend of Dragoon, like a lot of these, kind of like PlayStation era RPGs, you're just looking for something, on that next, at the time, the next generation system. And, that's the only memorable RPG off the top of my head, on that generation. So I thought it was great.
Yeah, good stuff. So ignore Krabby, check out Skies of Arcadia. But not ignoring Krabby now. What else you got for me?
Some of the better fighting games that I thought were the Marvel vs. Capcom 1 and 2.
Yeah,
I concur.
These were really popular for a long time.
Yeah.
Even after the system's death, right?
Yeah, still are.
Oh yeah. And they were, if I'm not mistaken, there were PlayStation, there was a PlayStation version of Marvel Capcom 1.
Yeah.
And a PlayStation 2 version of Marvel Capcom 2. But neither one supported full character swapping. So like your team would like jump in and like smack somebody and then jump back out, as opposed to like on the Dreamcast version was like, the way it was supposed to be, like you would tag your partner in and then the fight would continue.
Right. I remember for a while too, the PS2 one was selling like crazy. I sold mine for like $90 and it's never been near that again.
Yeah, because it came out on Xbox Live, right?
No, it tanked before that came out on Xbox Live, I think.
Did it? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe when it was announced digitally or something, right?
Maybe. I don't know.
But yeah, Crab, definitely Marvel Capcom. I mean, Marvel Capcom 2, I might have played more than... Like, I remember taking our we went to vacation at Ocean City, Maryland, and we took the Dreamcast with us. And it's like beautiful, perfect weather outdoors, beaches, like waves and boogie boarders. So like, that's my jam. And I was in the hotel room. And to Chris's point earlier with like unlockables, do you remember that Marvel Capcom 2 didn't come with all the characters unlocked? You had to like earn points to like purchase them and unlock them in the game.
There were so many characters. It took so long.
But you know what happened is if you set the Dreamcast to not shut off automatically.
Training mode?
Put it in training mode. And then we'd go to down to the beach and we'd come back and we'd just buy whatever characters we could. And once you filled up that whole character cross, like that globe of characters that you could choose, Marvel Capcom 2 was a revelation on that system, and it's still awesome.
Yeah, great stuff. Again, Capcom really supported the system really well. I was really very happy with it. Great.
So Krabby, even though you like those Marvel Capcom games, you said you didn't end up with the arcade sticks ever?
I'd never seen them until like within the last 6 months. I didn't know they existed.
What a shame.
I wasn't an arcade snob until I was in my married life.
Oh, there you go.
Controllers were fine when I was a kid.
There you go. What you got next, Bill?
Another game that had kind of an interesting, mechanic, between, what do you call it? With the introduction of the microphone.
Oh, yeah.
Ruh-roh. With the introduction of the microphone, you were able to communicate with a half man face, half fish body, Tamagotchi virtual pet thing.
Yeah.
Known as Seaman.
Seaman, right?
Oh, Seaman. Okay, so Seaman. Now, this was one of the coolest, weird, and like most quirkiest, most interesting. The packaging I thought was really cool. It was like this big, it was like a warning sign.
Yeah.
Like beware, Seaman, and and I remember how cool I thought it was when I had loaded the game up. And you know how like sometimes you hear like a voice in a video game and you're like, oh, I think that's that guy or whatever, right? So like in this one, it just loads up and it's like, hi, I'm Leonard Nimoy.
You're like, what? Spock is in my game.
It is? It is.
Yeah.
So, and so it was this virtual, tank, and that's what like you turn on your TV, there's a little tank there. It kept track of time, so like if you let 10 hours go by, you'd come back and your tank would be all dirty. You have to like clean it. But I had the microphone because you're supposed to like nurture and like raise this like little thing from egg like all the way to like through adulthood. And I remember it's one of the freakiest video game experiences I've ever had. So I'm in there with a friend. And it might have even been a girl. I was like trying to show her how cool and weird this game was.
Here, let me show you my semen.
We're in there. And I'm
sexiest game ever.
I'm like, no, check it out. Like, you can talk to it. And we're like, hello. And then it looks at you and it's like, meh. And you're like, hello? Like, can you hear me? And it looks at you and like, mumbles something. And I said, do you speak English? And then Seaman looks me right in the eye and he says, why do all Americans assume that everyone speaks English? And we looked at each other, like mouths like open, dropped the controller and like left the room. So I'm not doing this. I remember how cool I thought it was. I mean, in the end, it was really just like a very quirky game that like no one really stuck with really a whole lot, but it still is one of the most memorable times I had with the system.
So funny. There's a really funny video on YouTube of this guy playing it, and he's talking to him about computers, and Leonard Nimoy Fish is just like, do you have a computer? Do you prefer a laptop or a desktop? Excuse me, I need to make a baby. And then he goes and he hooks tubes with this other fish, and they just start like humping in the tank. And then as soon as they're done, he dies. He turns upside down and floats to the top of the tank, and it's over. It's awesome.
It's such a crazy
it'd probably
game.
be better now than it was, because I didn't have the patience back when it came out, but like now that like, you can put it on the TV and like walk around and clean the house and then come back to it and be like, how you doing, buddy? But yeah, Seaman was a very cool. And there's been a lot of talk because like with the Kinect and everything.
Oh no.
A lot of people have gone back to the creator of Seaman and said, "Hey, like why don't you just make it downloadable? Like make a new Seaman on like Xbox or whatever.
You could call it more Seaman."
Yeah, Seaman Connect. But
how about new Seaman?
Not a thing that's I guess he has any interest in doing.
That shows you the lengths that Sega was willing to go to, because my gosh, that game should have never come to the US, right? Never come to the US, and Sega was like, let's see what happens.
Yeah,
right. So
I wish companies were still willing to do that. Just put weird crap out and see what sticks.
Yeah, you'd probably just have anime porn. That's all you would get these days.
Wasn't that why you like Atlas so much?
Because of the anime porn?
No, because they just like whatever. Like, oh, this is weird and cool and quirky. We're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Atlas, Axis, and NIS are like the only companies that still bring over weird Japanese stuff.
Who makes Akiba?
I think that was Axis.
Okay.
So they do bring over anime porn.
It's the like Skinamax kind of stuff, though.
Okay.
Not the tentacle porn kind of stuff.
Thank God. All right. So up next, I am going to go with probably one of the ones that stood out to me and for a long time, this is the only place you could get this. Street Fighter 3.
Yeah.
Which one?
Well, the one that I played was always Double Impact, and then they later released Third Strike, but I never had Third Strike. I just had Double Impact back in the day. But, I remember, Street Fighter 2, of course, was so crazy huge. And then I remember when Street Fighter 3 came out, and I remember going to the arcade, like, oh my God, it's Street Fighter 3, right? And you play it and you're like, this is different. This is very different than what I'm used to. And it was hard at the arcade because, you had to dump a lot of money into it, and it was new systems, and it's like, Yeah,
and there was always someone in the arcade who was like a Street Fighter nut.
Yeah,
and he was
I'll destroy
than
you.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And you couldn't take all those skills you'd learned from Street Fighter 2 and really transfer them over really well. I mean, the basics, but the moves were different, the characters were new.
Now, was that the introduction of the parry system?
Yes, that was in 3. Yeah. And so it was a much more intricate fighter than 2 or, New Challengers or Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Super, Mega, Ultra, whatever. But it was good. And when I could get it home and play it, and you really had the time to kind of learn the systems of the game, it is a really fantastic fighter. And they had the 3 versions in the arcade. There was the original release, and they had Double Impact, and they had Third Strike. And Double Impact and Third Strike came to the Dreamcast. And I think even Third Strike, up until recently, still commanded a decent amount of money. I imagine once it came out on Xbox Live, it probably maybe have taken a temporary dip, but I would imagine that won't last long.
I think it's still around $50.
Yeah. But just talk about a very solid, well-built fighter. That's Street Fighter 3.
Yeah. There was a Street Fighter documentary this year, and what's his name? Seth Killian.
What is this called? Why have I not seen it?
I sent you a link to it a long time ago.
You did?
I think so.
Yeah,
on our channel.
Busy watching Twitch.
Anyway, if you know the name Seth Killian, he used to play and do well in a lot of Street Fighter tournaments, and he eventually got a job working for Capcom developing these kind of games.
Oh.
And
is that the guy that Seth is named after?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they named it after him. There's a character in Dive Kick I know they've named after him called S-Kill.
Well, you remember the main bad guy of Street Fighter 4 is Seth.
Yeah. I'm not sure, because I think he worked on the game, so I don't know if he just named it after himself. That seems weird. But he's the guy who plays like cross-handed. He plays with his left hands on the buttons, even though he's right-handed. So he has his right hand on the joystick. It's really weird to watch.
Crazy.
But he's talking about Third Strike and the appeal of it, and how it alienated so many new people because it was basically built for all the fans who just couldn't get enough of Street Fighter 2 and kept playing it long after it was out. And it built on those engines and mechanics and basics, and it was like an advanced version of it basically. And so when they made Street Fighter 4, he's like, we need more new people again, so they went back to very basic again.
Yeah, because like Street Fighter 3 was what the big Daigo video that everybody likes to watch.
It's awesome to watch.
It is. Every single time I still watch it, I'm like, holy crap. Right? But, it's pretty, I like watching, I still watch Evo and all that stuff. I think it's fantastic, even though I'm not very good at those games anymore. But I love kind of watching and playing those things. But yeah, Street Fighter 3, I'd say, if you're going to go out and buy one, get Third Strike because, it's the latter release. But great games. Great games.
You know what small difference I always notice between Double Impact and Third Strike?
What's that?
It's really small difference, or the really small detail when you think about these games, but the character models are larger in Double Impact.
Are they really?
They just take up more of the screen. And I didn't really notice it because I had Street Fighter Alpha 3 at the time for Dreamcast. Yeah. And the characters are, they're a good deal smaller. In Street Fighter 3, when Double Impact came out, I remembered oh wow, these characters are huge. They're just, they're able to make bigger character models. And then when I went to Third Strike, I noticed that they were not as large anymore. And I don't know, that's just kind of a personal preference thing, but it stood out to me that the character models in Double Impact appeared larger. Yeah, I think Double Impact and Third Strike are both solid. I owned them both. And they're both really good.
Yeah, fantastic. Rabbit, what you got next?
I mentioned the first experience with it was a few months after launch. Mm-hmm. My buddy, when I went over there, he only had 2 games for it. And I think it was just before Christmas, a week before. And he got Soul Calibur and, Resident Evil Code Veronica, which was the one we ended up playing a lot of. And the cinematic near the start with the helicopter shooting the windows out with her running.
One of the best ones ever.
Yeah, it was so amazing at the time to see that. And then the game just had this really spooky feel right off the start, in that kind of it's not really a graveyard, but there was so many zombies. Usually, even in the cities in the earlier ones, there was not that many zombies there. Yeah. There were so many at the start of this game that you just already felt like you were going to die for the first hour straight.
I think we've talked about that opening cinematic, but oh my god, it is so good. So good. And when spoiler alert, when she's got her hands up and then she drops the gun, but then drops her body down, catches the gun, it's I want to watch it right now. It's really, really great. And then another spoiler alert, it's another one of those things where the bad guy that you think is the bad guy is not really the bad guy.
No.
I 100% agree, Crab. I'm not a huge Resident Evil guy because I'm not very good at the games, even though I know that they're very good. This game just creeps you out. The whole atmosphere of this one in particular really creeps me out.
Yeah, I bought this one when it was released and played through it and loved it. Because also notable because it was the first really 3D Resident Evil.
It was the first one without the pre-rendered backgrounds.
Yeah.
You guys both finish it?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't good enough.
No?
It was longer than the previous few in the series. I felt it had a good, most of them you can speed run within an hour to an hour and a half when you get really good at them. Mm-hmm. This one felt like a 3-hour speed run.
Mm.
Yeah, it was, there's a lot of content to it. And you remember those moth creatures? They would come to lay eggs on you or whatever? Creeped me out. Oh my gosh, creeped me out so badly. Because you start out and then eventually you get to the ice place.
Yes.
God, it's been so long since I played it.
And if I remember correctly, this one had the where you're fighting the dude on the plane and you gotta hit him with the cargo.
Maybe it's been a long time.
That sounds familiar. Yeah,
it's been a long time.
Yeah, it's. And I know that's the point. Is they're trying to make you feel uncomfortable and you don't have enough ammo and that you have to struggle for every inch. And I know that's the point. And there's people who like feeling that way. I don't love feeling that way all the time.
It felt worse in this game too. Like the other games, like just because you're in like a big area that, like a city, like in Resident Evil 3, for instance, it feels like, you know, hey, I'll run into something. Some idiot would have, you know, held a couple bullets under the counter in a store or whatever. But this one, like, just because of the locale, the setting, it doesn't feel like places you'll find ammunition. So you always feel very vulnerable.
Yeah.
All right. Bill, what you got?
I'm going to pull a big surprise out of the box.
More surprising than Seaman?
The big surprise is South Park Chef's Love Shack. This game.
That's a big surprise.
Someone got it for me for my birthday. Probably whoever I was dating at the time. And I think they actually got it for me for the PlayStation. And then I went and I exchanged it for the Dreamcast version because, you know, why wouldn't you? And it's a pretty bad trivia game. But the mini games, some of the mini games are really fun. It's kind of hard to explain, but like, you know, like the kind of the South Park style with like, you know, how it's all like crappily animated and like, just like the way things are. So like, it's kind of like, you're all running, you know, like kind of like left to right on the screen and you're all trying to like jump over, you know, like logs, like to not be the last one to like, kind of get left out. It's just a silly, stupid little, like, if you like South Park humor, like, you'd really like it. And I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did, especially because basically it's a trivia game. So, like, the last few questions, everyone buzzes in, and then you give your answer. And then, like, every, like, 3 or 4 questions, you play a mini game. The trivia part of it is bad. Just straight up bad. No one's gonna have fun with it. So, like, we would all just, like, you know, hit whatever button we could just to get through the trivia as fast as possible to get back to the mini games. And there's no mode to like just go straight to mini. I just want to play like free play mini games. There's none of that. So you know, despite missing those features, some of the mini games are still really, really fun. So, it's one of those oddballs that like, I look at on the shelf and like I pull it out once in a while and I just smile just from the, you know, the time we used to have with it. And, I'm sure it's probably the worst game that we'll talk about today, but I don't know.
We've already talked about Skies of Arcadia, though.
Oh! Why does he have to do it?
I set him up, you knock him down.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, then. My turn. I want to talk about Cannon Spike.
Nice.
So, Cannon Spike, another Capcom game. We noticed a trend here, aren't we?
Well, give me more Cammy.
Yeah. Yeah, well, appropriately, right? Cannon Spike kind of named after the move that Cammy does. But yeah, they kind of your traditional, like, Capcom just likes to do this stuff. So they take a bunch of their characters, they smash them into a game, and a lot of these are just, you know, like odd, like, okay, Cammy, okay, let's star her, and then Charlie from Alpha, let's cram him in there too. And then Arthur from Ghouls, and yeah, we'll put him in there, right?
Charlie's the one that looks like Wet Guile, right?
Yeah, basically. His hair fell down. With glasses.
Right.
And then there was the Darkstalkers girl, right?
Which one was it? Felicia?
No.
Heisenko?
No, the red, like, Red Riding Hood.
Oh,
one,
Red Hood, yeah.
I think that was the one. But this is like almost like a twin stick shooter kind of game, which is just how odd, right? Who was at Capcom that went, yeah, this is what we need to put together. Let's take all these characters, mash them together, and put them into like a top-down kind of view 3D shooter game.
Hey, it worked.
It did, and very interesting game. And I'm guessing didn't sell very well, because it's kind of hard to find and very pricey these days, right?
Yeah, it's gotten up there.
Yeah, so just really an odd idea that Capcom came up with. Never heard anything else about it. There was nothing, you know what I mean? A lot of these other games at least got ported to PS2. Poor Cannon Spike. Just got left behind on the Dreamcast. But That was pretty cool. It was just, again, like we talked about before, they just went out there, like, again, like Seaman, like they just went, yeah, let's just do it. Just throw it out there. Let's see what happens. And they did. So that was pretty cool. I like that. Go Capcom.
Go Capcom.
No comments from the Peanut Gallery about Cannon Spike, or?
I've never played Cannon Spike.
It's awesome.
You should check it out.
Yeah?
It's $80, but it's awesome. Yeah. It's worth it.
Is it worth $80?
It's like the shoot 'em up fans. If you're into that kind of game, it's worth it.
Yeah.
If you just want to check it out of a curiosity, borrow it.
Yeah, it's hard for me to think that any, like, I don't know.
I'd say it's definitely not probably for everyone, but if you A, like Capcom fan service, and B, like shooting games, go for it.
So if you like Capcom fan service, you can just get Dead Rising.
You could.
Because that has Ultra Megazord Capcom download pack.
Then you have to download something.
Oh, what a piece of garbage.
When I was watching that with Fleech when he was here,
you were so excited. I
was so pumped until the last 2 seconds. I'm like, this is the best thing ever. Where can I buy this? And
available to download today.
Yeah.
No.
That's exactly what happened.
Oh, man. Have you put, I mean, so with all your luck in, well, not luck, with all your hard work and paying off, with, the legislation that, you're getting, changed up in your area there, have you thought about applying that petitioning skill to Capcom to see if you can get a physical release of, Ultra Mega Download Edition?
It's my next goal.
Keep working on them. Keep working. What you got next for us, Krabby?
All right, since you did Capcom, we'll do something SNK next.
Okay.
Another fighting game I've really enjoyed. Fatal Fury: Mark of the Wolves.
Oh, going full SNK on us.
Yeah. It's still known as one of the just really, really balanced, best tournament kind of games. It's got a really tight roster, not overly overwhelming one, just one that didn't need an ultra version to come out and then a hyper version, and then they did it right the first time, and the roster, you can pretty much get good with anybody and have a chance in a tournament setting. It's really fun. It plays a lot like other Fatal Fury games. If you've ever played any of those fighting ones, you'll be pretty comfortable going into it. Very kind of like Third Strike, where you got to spend a lot of time learning the systems and to get really good at it, though.
Yeah, they started getting pretty technical, right? Because that's the way all those fighting games seem to go. They start off kind of, everybody can jump in, and then, we have to really crank it up to make money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's kind of what turned me off of Street Fighter 4.
That's that's exactly what's happened to Street Fighter 4.
I bought it, and I'm like, okay, Street Fighter 4, I'm going to get into it, and then I was like, no, I am not good at this game.
I don't understand. 4 is back to the basics. It's not technical at all.
Well, no, because
4 is.
Well,
4 is not, no.
You think that, and then you go into training mode, and then it's like, okay, just do this. And you're like, okay, I'll just punch that guy. Okay, now do this 3-hit combo. Okay, I'll do that. Now do this 17-hit combo. And I'm trying to do that, and I'm like, my fingers, they don't work that way. And my brother, who's a big Street Fighter guy, he's looking at me in the eye as he's doing it. He's like, oh, it's just like that. Oh, you do those 17 buttons just like that. And I'm like, no.
If you watch a lot of tournament matches, though, you'll see them doing the 3 to 5 hit combos because they can consistently do them and they do decent damage. They play it safe all the time. They use basics to do well. They don't need those huge flashy combos.
Yeah,
that's true.
I felt like the game was trying to teach me how to play it, and I was like, I don't want to play you that way.
The training mode is terrible in that game. Don't ever play it. Just play against your friends and have fun. The training mode, because it's so... You have to hit things in the perfect frame to link combos, and it is frustrating.
That's what frustrated me about it. So you're telling me, forget that, just go in and do it. Just
play with a buddy, and you guys will get better. You'll learn to dodge fireballs on your own. You'll learn to do little 3 to 4 hit combos that feel good and look good enough that you'll be happy with them. And the training mode's awful.
All right, I'm willing to give it another shot.
And I'd say specialize in a character. Right. Don't try to learn all of them.
And that was one of the recent free games with gold. So there we go.
Yeah. And then Ultra just came out. So
not to hijack Krabby's SNK bit right here. So what is it something that you still play?
The Mark of the Wolves?
Yes.
Yeah, like when I said when I'd bring like a stack of games to the gaming things, that's always in the stack.
Does anyone
big
ever...
SNK players?
There's a few actually. I got like the King of Fighters in the Neo Geo that Bill hooked me up with. And every time it's dead enough in here, or I have my employee in, and I see someone in the store I know that's in the SNK, it's like throw some quarters at them and we just hang out for 20 minutes and play King of Fighters.
Stop throwing quarters at me.
I'll play, just stop. Those toonies hurt.
That's what I got to do to get people to jam some wind around here.
Oh, Bill, take us back. What else we got in there?
All right, so Sega's pretty well known for their racing games between like Daytona, like on the Saturn, and others as well. So one of the better rally games that I remember playing on any system is Sega Rally Championship. This is one of those games that it doesn't matter if you're good at racing games or not. You're not good at this game. Like you really, the controls are really twitchy, which really frustrates a lot of people because the game comes across as very, very difficult. And it is very, very difficult. But like, it's one of those things where if you can pull into a turn and like drift through it and control the drift the whole way through where like you're not like fishtailing too much or taking it too shallow, it's an amazing feeling coming out of that turn. The problem is in this game, you kind of have to do that on almost every turn to have a chance of winning the race. I probably spent more time. This is one of the only racing games that I spent significantly more time losing races than winning races and still having fun. Just because I wanted to get better at racing. And I've always really liked rally games and, kind of like the off-road tracks in Gran Turismo, like dirt track racing. I just like sliding across the track in the racing games I play. So Sega Rally, Championship, if you're into, any kind of a racing game that's off-road, just be fully aware that it's going to be, not the easiest, drift racing you've ever, had to do.
So, I never really played a lot of the Sega Rally games. And I was always a big Daytona fan, but never really gave it much time. And I know rally racing is like its own little thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like the Colin McRae rally games and Codemasters, they're big into the rally scene. I think the Colin McRae rally became the Dirt series.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So so Colin McRae became, like Colin McRae like 4 is Dirt. And then it was like Dirt 2, Dirt 3. So like Dirt 3 is actually Colin McRae 7, or whatever it is. But yeah, it's, the rally racing scene is its own whole new thing.
So where does Joe Dirt fit in the
Joe, it's actually Dear Tay.
No, nothing's complete without a Joe Dirt.
No, very, very, very few things are. So yeah, it's actually, I don't know if I threw the 2 in there. Sega Rally Championship was a Saturn game. So this is Sega Rally 2, was the Dreamcast version. Relatively inexpensive. And it's probably one of those, like it's kind of seen as like a, most racing sports games, like if you go to a flea market, like that's kind of all that's left because everything's picked it over. So it shouldn't be too difficult to find a copy of this for like a few bucks. And, I think it's a really good game if you like rally racing.
Oh, definitely. Well, up next, I think I've mentioned a little briefly, but I'm going to spend, maybe just a little more time talking about Phantasy Star Online.
Right.
Phantasy Star Online was really, I think, pretty revolutionary for the time, because what it did was it allowed you to play online with other people, and you would go into basically like an area, and there could be up to 4 of you that could play together, and you would go through these levels. You would power up, you'd get better weapons from drops that you would find, so it's had some basic loot system to it, and it was really great because it took all the stuff kind of from the Phantasy Star universe, built on it, added some new races and jobs, and kind of really just turned you loose in this completely online world. You can't. It had like an offline mode where you could do that stuff too, and then there was like an online mode where you could play. And of course, most of the time, if you could, that's where you spent your time, was in the online mode, because you could team up and you could get some better drops. You could help each other out. It was a lot of fun. And as you guys mentioned before, you could use the keyboard. You could type messages back and forth, at least when you're all speaking the same language. But it worked pretty well, and I had a lot of fun with it. I played that thing, probably to death. I played a lot of Phantasy Star Online, even played it again more once they got another re-release on Xbox, and played through that again for a really long time. But just a great story. It's not terribly long. I want to say there's like maybe like 4 main zones to go through, and each one kind of has a big boss at the end, and you can just repeat them over and over, at like various difficulty levels. Really, you're just, again, it's like a lot of these games, you're just grinding. You want to get more powerful, higher levels, better loot, guns and things. And then you also had these companion characters called mags, and mags were like this little robot that would follow you along, and you had to kind of feed it. Again, we're getting back to like that Tamagotchi stuff, right? But your mag would evolve. So if you fed items, it would evolve, and it gave you stat boosts to your playing. And they were also like really hard to find mags, where like if you didn't evolve them just the right way, you would get like a Dreamcast mag or like a Genesis mag or whatever that would be floating around behind you and stuff. So it was always pretty cool to check these things out. A lot of fun just playing with people. And really probably one of my first major online gaming experiences. And it's just really well done. Tons of fun to play. Anybody? You guys at all Phantasy Star Online?
I had it. I really, really liked it. But I really didn't want to. I really wanted to play with people that I knew. And I thought that was a thing that you could do. And I found the whole, like, kind of custom setup of using the broadband adapter and, like, just, like, the whole, I remember, like, thinking it was going to be a whole lot more seamless than it was. And, like, it actually required you to do a lot of the work. So I didn't play it for longer than, like, a couple of months.
Yeah, and you had to pay a fee to play.
Right.
Because, you had to have this hunter's license. So, it was back in those days where online games, you had to pay a separate monthly fee to play them. It wasn't very expensive, though. I don't remember very expensive at all.
And one of my roommates, I didn't play it on the Dreamcast, but he got the GameCube version with the broadband adapter.
Yeah.
And we used to watch him play it all the time, but I've just, any MMO I've tried to get into a few, they just don't hold any appeal to me.
I'm pretty sure you can't classify this as MMO because 4 people is not massively multiplayer.
If there's more than I can fit on my couch, it's massive.
You can fit 4 people on your couch, right?
I don't have a big couch.
You have a love seat.
I do. I like to be close to my gaming buddies. I have one of those X arcade sticks that has like the 2 controls on it. So we got to sit like right next to each other, like touching thighs to play fighting games.
That's true. Yes, you do. But that's it. I have a lot of love for PSO. There's a couple versions for Dreamcast. Yeah, I'd say check it out. It's fun. It's great.
Yeah, there's literally a couple versions.
Yes. Yep.
And it's just labeled it's labeled V2, right?
Yeah, I think that's it. And they just kind of added some extra content. Okay, Krabby, what else you got?
Another kind of goofy one that I really enjoyed called Dynamite Cop.
Dynamite Cop.
This is called Dynamite Deca in Japan. And I remember like reading a preview for it and thinking it was going to be really cool. I never ended up playing this game.
Oh, you should check it out if you get a chance. It is so much fun. It's like a 3D beat 'em up, but just so ridiculous and goofy. Like even on the cover, it's got something ridiculous about tuna slinging right on the cover. Because you could like pick up all sorts of weird stuff and use it as weapons throughout the game. But it's a really solid beat 'em up and just doesn't take itself seriously. It's really ridiculous the whole way through. Like, yeah, and the main guy is totally based on like Bruce Willis from Die Hard.
Right.
It's like a big parody and it's really fun.
So it's actually, so you mean like the game literally like, it's like, is it like a comedy? Like it's a parody of Die Hard?
Yeah, basically. It's more like a parody of action movies, and the main character just happens to be Bruce Willis.
So it's kind of like Expendables-y?
No, way wackier than that.
Oh, okay.
It's more like Spy Hard.
Oh, wow. So that far.
Well, maybe some in between there.
Just pure cheese. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
That sounds cool.
That's cool. I've never played Dynamite Cop, so I don't.
It's not as expensive as a lot of the other ones we've been talking about. I think it's still around the like $20 range, so quite affordable to try out.
Interesting. So is it? I mean, what's the gameplay like?
Did you ever play like what's that one? Fighting Force?
Yes.
It's like that, but with better controls.
Oh, okay.
Because
it probably wasn't hard.
When you were describing it as like kind of like a 3D like beat 'em up, I was kind of thinking of the Bouncer.
Oh no!
No.
I remember that was going to be such a thing. Oh man.
Yep.
Please forget the Bouncer.
We used to always log online to check the Final Fantasy IX online guide they had. Yeah. And every single time the front page was like ads for the Bouncer for like a year straight.
Oh, jeez. So terrible.
Yeah.
Bill, got anything else for us?
Oh, I do. So, one of the downfalls of the system was that, I don't think we've mentioned this yet before, but Electronic Arts absolutely refused to develop any games for the Dreamcast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, it's, I can't remember exactly what their problem with it was. But EA and Sega weren't seeing eye to eye, so that's why there's no EA stuff, on the system. Now this did something interesting because Sega wanted, sports games. So it's part of the reason why Sega Sports and NFL 2K came about. And then, NHL 2K, also became a thing because there's no way to get EA Sports NHL series over there. So the NHL 2K series, is fantastic. There's only 3 games, on the Dreamcast, for the NHL. There's NHL 2K, 2K1, and 2K2. And we foreshadowed to this, this earlier. NHL 2K2 featuring Chris Drury on the cover, Connecticut's own Chris Drury, who also pitched a winning, Little League World Series game, as well as being a Stanley Cup champion. A little bit of trivia for you. It was the last game at retail, and I bought that at retail for the Dreamcast. And the NHL 2K series, not only was it great, it was better than EA's hockey game all 3 years it was out. EA had gotten kind of cocky about, no one, it was, no one was opposing them. No one was opposing them with their hockey games. Like, seriously, the year before, or like the year that, NHL 2K came out, EA's NHL hockey game, like, when you would take a slap shot in their simulation hockey game, a sound effect of a cannon, would play. And there's literally a line when you score a goal in NHL 2000 on the PlayStation 2 where you score a goal and, the horn goes off and then the announcer says, I spilled hot coffee on my legs. And then the other guy, the color commentator guy, says, those are my legs.
What?
Yeah, and I'm listening to this and I'm like, what is this? Like Abbott and Costello? Like I'm listening to a comedy bit in my simulation hockey game. So they kind of got a little carried away. And I feel like even though a lot of people don't agree with me, but I think 2K kind of forced them to refocus on like actually making a good hockey game, which they did. And I think, now you're seeing some of the, the effects of not having any competition, but, not to get too much into like a hockey jam here. And if hockey games there's only one choice on the Dreamcast, it's the 2K series. They're all really, really solid. So,
when Sega stopped with the Dreamcast, did they continue to make these games for other systems like they did the other 2K games?
Funny you should ask. So the 2K company, was all sports. It was, an NFL 2K, NHL 2K, NBA 2K. And then, I mean, as you obviously know, 2K, makes many, many other things, that are not sports. I think the only sports game they still make is NBA. 2K, I couldn't tell you the exact history of the company and kind of how it evolved from what it was to what it is. But 2K Games started out, just as a division of Sega dedicated to making sports games. And then they slowly branched out to making other things. And, now 2K is 2K. But, they came from a humble sports game, beginning on the Dreamcast.
Amazing stuff, right?
Yeah, that's a good story.
Good deal.
What other team starts off making like a yearly, just a yearly franchise type game and actually grows to what 2K is right now? It's really kind of unbelievable.
Yeah, 2K is huge, for sure. Okay. I'm going to go up next with Jet Set Radio, or in some territories is Jet Grind Radio. But this was like this really wacky Sega game for Dreamcast that really had you going around and grinding on things, doing some tricks, and doing a lot of spray painting. You do like spray paint tagging. And these cops, of course, would be after you for doing it. And you'd have to do like a certain number of tags. So you'd have to like skate up to a place where you're supposed to do a tag. And then to paint the tag, you'd have to like move the joystick in certain ways and then have enough time so you could spray the thing, the tag on the wall and then keep moving. And you had like this big kind of world that you'd move around to do this. And it was just kind of like a lot of fun. It was nothing like incredibly fancy, but it was one of the earlier games that used that cell shading style of graphics.
Yeah, it was really unique looking back then.
Yep.
Yeah.
And people forget that was like a trend for a little bit.
Yeah.
And that was one of the first ones that's like one of the most prominent cell shaded games.
Yeah, it was like a big deal at the time. Very stylized. And another thing that was cool about that game was you could use the online part of it where you could go and get pictures from the internet and download them like JPEGs into the game, and you could use those as your like tags in the environment. So you could spray paint, tags, but like pictures of whatever you wanted to download from the internet. So
we all know what the 14-year-old boys downloaded from the internet.
You already know what everyone had.
How could this possibly go wrong?
Exactly. Right, exactly. Just kind of like, you remember back with the N64 where originally they were going to have Perfect Dark where you could use the Game Boy camera to put your face on the characters until they figured out everybody would just have dong heads.
Butt faces.
But yeah, it's, you could do that. So of course, yeah, you would just have naked women and stuff or whatever. But you could use any picture. I mean, anything you wanted to. You could just download the file onto your VMU and you could put them in as your tags. So, it was kind of cool. It was a really pretty neat idea. It was it was a very much of the time. It was Sega just, yeah, sure, let's just do it. Let's just see what happens. And, it was a lot of fun. And eventually they did get a sequel, on Xbox. Mm-hmm. But, pretty cool game. Any guys Jet Set?
I thought it was a cool game. I got it right when it came out. Didn't play a ton of it. Kind of, I kind of feel the way about that game as Krabby feels about Sonic Adventure.
Okay.
I feel like the momentum should have carried, I feel like I want to grind a rail and now I'm building up speed and I'm spraying tags. And then I jump off that rail. I have some speed. I get on another rail. Oh, I'm spraying tags. And I feel like, okay, I've jumped a rail, sprayed a tag, jumped a rail, sprayed a tag, jumped a rail, sprayed a tag. What else am I supposed to be doing? And then you jump off a rail, then you kind of accidentally hit a wall and then you're at a stop now. And now you start moving again. And then so it's like, I feel like I either wasn't good enough at it to keep the momentum going or, the game just wanted me to spray a few things a handful of times and then slow down and then do it again. So I'm not sure it really hooked me the way it hooked a lot of people. But I did buy it when it came out and I did play it, for a bit.
I unfortunately played a lot of Tony Hawk prior to playing that game and then felt kind of like Bill saying, those games, you just never stop. You're always doing something, banking points, and Jet Set just wasn't as fast as I wanted it to be.
That's a really interesting point because I was real big into Tony Hawk too. No, when I say that, I mean Tony Hawk also. And then
two was good.
2 is great. And then, the 3 and 4,
four was just still like one of my favorite games. So
when they let you, I think it was either 3 or 4 where you could manual off of anything.
Yeah.
You'd stretch one trick for the entire run. It'd be like 80 million points. I remember people who didn't understand how that worked. I was like in college and I would like pop in someone's dorm room, do like an 80 billion point trick, drop the controller and leave. And they were like, what just happened? But yeah, that's all I wanted to do is like speed, link a trick, keep doing stuff, do other stuff, do different stuff, do this. And like Jet Set was like grind a rail, hit a button to spray. Grind a rail, hit a button to spray, stop.
Yeah. And maybe that's the thing.
Again.
I never really played Tony Hawk. So maybe that's why I don't come from there, but there you go. Krabby?
You guys mentioned Samba de Amigo earlier. I didn't really get into that one as much. My rhythm game of choice was Space Channel 5.
Is
one
it because,
or two or both?
Is it because it's a lady?
Lady and just... I don't know. Samba was weird, but this was weirder somehow.
It had Michael Jackson in it.
Yeah, it was just quirky, weird, fun, and you didn't need the peripheral either, so you didn't have to close the blinds. You could play it.
Didn't you feel like it was a little Parappa-y?
I missed out on Parappa completely. I didn't know that game existed when I played this.
Oh no! What a shame. That's a crime against humanity, right?
Yeah, it was, I don't know, delightful, quirky, fun. I don't know, for some reason, when games like that are enjoyable, even if they don't have soundtracks that I would ever listen to outside that game, I can get over it and play it and just have fun.
Well, for people that don't know about Space Channel 5, why don't you tell them about the game?
Yeah, like anyone who's played Parappa, it's kind of the same idea, right? You have button combinations that pop up that you kind of usually tap in rhythm to the music that's going on to make, once you get to the end of the sequence, it's acting out some weird goofy scene that finishes as you progress through the song.
Yeah, they're like dance numbers, right?
Oh yeah, she's supposed to be like a space reporter or something, so she goes to all these weird...
that's right, she was a news reporter.
Yeah, she goes to all these weird intergalactic places and just goofy things happen and you dance your way through them. It's always funny.
Kind of like Final Fantasy X-2 with the girl band.
Exactly.
There's like a great big world's crisis, but give me the microphone.
Yeah, Ulala, wasn't that her name?
Ulala.
Ulala,
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Ulala and her friend Gum.
I don't remember that part.
Yeah, she had a weird name.
I just remember Michael Jackson. Because there's 2 of them, right? 2 of them on Dreamcast.
Yeah, maybe Gum's in the second one, then I can't remember.
I don't know, but man, just wacky. Yeah, it was again, like you said, there's just not enough, publishers out there that do that these days that just go, yeah, sure, just do it. Let's see what happens. I guess maybe indie games. That's where indie games are shining these days, right?
But I'm missing out on all the good ones.
Yep. You're going to have to adjust your principles.
There's still enough physical stuff I've missed out on. I won't have to adjust for decades.
Yeah, that's the truth. That's the truth. Good deal. So, Bill, you got something else in the tank?
You know what? I might bother some people with this.
Uh-oh.
But I'm going to go out on a limb and talk about a game that I was really excited for and defended for a long time. And now I've kind of come to the realization of like, it's a high profile game and I don't think it was that great. And I kind of understand why it died.
Uh-oh.
Shenmue.
Oh, you're going to do it?
You know what? It was very ambitious. Shenmue.
Is it Moo or Mooey?
I say Shenmue.
I've always mooied it.
You've always mooied it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you also say Vai.
But that's the right thing to do there. Shenmue, I can,
Shenmue?
Yeah, I might be wrong with that one. I'm not wrong with Vai.
I'll say Shenmue just for Krabby.
I say Shenmue.
I'm going to say Shenmue because Krabby is Krabby. So in Shenmue 1, And this is one of those, kind of high profile, game that everyone's expecting to come out. It's a big Sega thing. It's going to have fighting. It's going to have, cause the Virtua Fighter, right? Virtua Fighter engine. It's going to have, good fight. It's going to have story. It's going to open world. You're going to be able to drive, get a job, take care of things. What time is it? Oh, it's time to go home. It was kind of like one of the first games that tried to do that. And for one of the first games that tried to do that, it's really not that bad, at doing a lot of those things, but, it's also not that fun. It's just ambitious, but there's no fun factor in there. So as much as you really want to like that game.
Isn't it also one of the games that kind of pioneered like quick action cutscenes?
It did. That was the one.
I don't think it pioneered because people knew what QTEs were before that game.
I don't mean as like the first one. It really like started the trend though, like popularized it.
I was going to say that game came up with the term QTE.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, it was the first genesis of QuickTime Event. Although we can say it goes back to like Laserdisc games, really. But
right, that's the beginning. That's the coining of the phrase, and then people were like, "Oh, now that it has a name, we can do it." Also,
yeah.
But yeah, you would jump up to an arcade machine, and it was just press Y when the thing comes up, and the only thing that wasn't QTE for the most part was the real-time fighting. Everything else that happened in the game, you could be walking in a cutscene and then someone runs by you. Oh, you gotta hit the B button. Oh, you didn't hit the B button? Oh, then the story changes. But yeah, it's, I don't know, Shenmue is one of the, and then Shenmue 2 came out. I bought it. I don't even remember anything about Shenmue 2. Movie.
Yeah, because here we got it on Xbox, but in Europe and Japan they got it on Dreamcast.
Right.
So,
and it was supposed to be this whole big it's going to be a 3, 4, 5 part big huge game. I think the only thing I remember about Shenmue 2 was previously on Shenmue, and it showed the entire story of Shenmue 1 in 40 seconds, and you're like, that is everything that happened. Story-wise in Shenmue 1, that took forever and nothing happened.
It's because you spent all your time playing Plinko.
Oh man, you were driving on the dock. Oh, you just pick up this pallet and move it over here for you, buddy. Yeah, so I don't know. I didn't mean to go on a Shenmue rant, but the game, it's a well-known Sega game for the system. I do not think it is good.
Let me just say that the opinions of Bill do not represent those of the other hosts.
Actually, they do in this case.
The game's not good.
I am 100% with Bill on this.
They don't represent my opinion then.
I wasn't joking about the Plinko. I just played Plinko for 2 hours. I'm like, this is awesome. I'm never playing Shenmue again.
I love this game. I played all the way through it. Yeah.
Nothing happens in it.
I played through it because it was...
There's sailors. Come on.
It was very...
But what do you do with a drunken sailor?
It was kind of the first sort of open world-ish kind of experience that you had, where it's kind of go anywhere, do what you want sort of thing. Things happened at certain times, and you kind of had a world to play in.
You know I don't like that.
I didn't say you did. I said I did.
If they made that world go just left to right, then I'd be okay with it.
But that's it. You would, you check your watch. You could look in places. You could visit people at different times of day. You could talk to them.
All of the things you're saying are things you can do in this game, and none of them are fun.
I thought it was a neat experience. I enjoyed it.
I agree. It's a neat. It's a very good idea.
And the fighting engine was really good when you did the fights.
Yep, absolutely. It was very ambitious. I'm glad that there are people in the world willing to say, you know what? No one's ever done this before. I'm doing this. I'm glad that that's the thing. And I'm also, hey, not everyone's a winner.
Let's just say, let's agree to disagree.
That's fine. We normally do.
Yeah, it's okay. I have a lot of fond memories of Shenmue, so, but that's okay. I'm going to go and talk more about Capcom again. Surprise. For the Dreamcast, it's a very big Capcom-y show. But I want to talk about Project Justice. right? So,
I say Project Justice.
oh, okay, sorry. I'll say that just for you.
Just
Project Justice.
Just Stewie.
But Project Justice is basically what, like the sequel to Rival Schools, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So Rival Schools was originally on the PlayStation, 3D fighter that's about basically kind of like high school kids. And there were
From Rival Schools.
There you go. See, and I
think that's like I know, you know, and there's always rivalries between sports teams and stuff in like US and Canada, but I think there must be some kind of school rivalry in Japan, because that comes up in a lot of games that I played that involve high school kids. They're always talking about rival schools and how they need to do something to defeat this school, and it seems like they're always in competition.
Yeah. That happens a lot in this country whenever schools are just in really close proximity. So it happens in a lot of cities and a lot of towns with multiple high schools. Like in Newtown and Sandy Hook, it's a big thing. But yeah, I don't know if it's a big thing in Japan, but I wouldn't be surprised.
I think it must be cultural there. Like I don't remember ever having rival schools when I grew up.
That's probably because there's
so
like the next school is like 500 miles away.
I was trying to say that only nicer when I said, yeah, like maybe when schools are a little bit closer to each other.
When you actually get to see another kid.
If it weren't for the internet, you guys would still be...
When you have to take a 6-hour bus ride, you're pretty cranky when you get out. You better take those guys down.
Oh, man.
So I bought Rival. There's a girl I had a crush on in high school. I bought her, because this is how you win a girl's heart, I bought her a PlayStation and Rival Schools.
Seriously?
Yeah.
That is awesome.
I don't know.
Did it work?
We were friends for a while.
Oh, friend
so
zone,
not
huh?
really. Yeah. Super friend zone.
Oh, no.
And now she lives like 1,000 miles away.
Can you Facebook her and say, hey, can I get that PlayStation Rival Schools back?
That game's actually kind of valuable. Can I grab it?
You still got that sitting around?
Oh, I bet she sold it a while ago.
She probably gave it away at like a flea market. Oh, it was worth anything.
Yep.
Oh, man. But yeah,
played Rival Schools. I didn't play Project Justice. I knew it was
Project
a sequel,
Justice. Though. Yeah, it's I don't think well, Rival Schools wasn't big to begin with. So,
no.
This is even not as big on Dreamcast. So it's a little pricier, but still, it's a cool Capcom fighting game. So
you guys see the trend? Like, I keep throwing in like cheapo, like game for $1 or $2, it's fun, and you guys are like, well, it's
$50 minimum.
Hey, Shenmue's cheap, and you beat that one up.
Yeah, I did.
It's actually getting up there. It's like $30 now.
Really?
Yeah.
Ah, man, this thing is so common. It's everywhere.
And just to mention, the last thing about Shenmue is there is that limited edition that came with the soundtrack disc, right?
There you go, right?
So that's kind of like, you know, if you're going to go for one, like, you know, make sure you get that limited ed, soundtrack or like passport disc or whatever it was that it came with.
I just want to, I just want to mention this just for, if I hover over, or when Krabby moves his pointer around in the Google Doc, it says anonymous dingo.
What's mine say?
Bill.
Oh, because he's not logged in. Yeah, that's right.
He's anonymous dingo. So there you go. All right.
Stop eating babies, Krabby.
What you got, anonymous dingo?
I know we talked about it very briefly earlier, Power Stone, but I want to bring up the second one because it does something very important that the first one didn't do. And
more powerful stones?
Yes, more powerful stones. 4 players. It literally becomes like a party game now. Like the first one kind of had the building blocks for it, but once you have 4 players, it's just like pandemonium constantly. It's so much more fun.
Yeah, I never got into Power Stone 1. Power Stone 2 was the jam.
You can't go backwards once you played 2. Like it's so hard to go back to 1.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically like Thrill Kill. Is that what you're trying to say?
I don't get the reference.
You're like Captain America. Now, did 1 have moving levels like 2 did? Like where you're like on an elevator and like you could get knocked off and stuff like that?
They definitely got a little more creative into. They're a lot more interactive, and there's parts where like a boulder will chase all four of you out of the screen on two, and you will run down a hallway while still fighting until you get to the end where the boulder can't kill you. And
like that's like the level design, and as well as the multiplayer in two. Like it just improves on every little thing. Like I think you said it the right way. Like one had building blocks. And everything in 2 builds on 1.
Yeah, it had really good ideas, and it was awesome. And 2 just did everything right and nothing wrong, so that it's just you can't go backwards.
So, the strange thing to me is that Dreamcast dies, Power Stone dies.
They did a collection on the PSP.
Okay, Power Stone dies.
All 2 of them collected together.
The PSP, is that a joke? The PSP looks like a tombstone.
It's almost as bad as the Vita.
No, that's the Vita is like a monument. You stick that thing in the ground.
You definitely can't stick it in your pocket. That's for sure.
No, I have to put it in my backpack and then carry it with me.
Risk the pain.
I do though because
lower
it's
back
great.
pain.
And I play Final Fantasy X every day.
So, Bill, you got anything left?
You know what? I actually don't. That's, there's definitely more games that I, have on the Dreamcast and that I enjoy. Oh, actually, no, I have one more.
Okay.
My last one, one of my absolute favorite 2 and 4 player, sports experiences, Virtua Tennis.
That was such a big title for some reason for people that
Virtua
never played tennis.
Great. No, exactly. Yeah, like I remember like it was on like a demo disc or like the official Dreamcast magazine or something, or like I played it in a store on a kiosk, and it was like, am I crazy or is that awesome? And then we all bought, Virtua Tennis. We would have like we had like a whiteboard where we have tournaments and like, like do round robin with this thing. And all it was like you had like your regular hit, and you had like your top spin so that the ball accelerated. Then you had your lob, and it was so arcadey. Like people would like get into these like volley matches. It was like dunk, 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 dunk,
faster and faster.
And then it's like the first one to hit lob, and then it goes up over. And then it's no. You knew as soon as they hit it. Virtua Tennis is awesome. And then a little bit later, Tennis 2K2, which is a sequel. It wasn't bad. They tried to make it a cross between like a sim and an arcade, and it didn't really work. It's not a bad game, but Virtua Tennis 1, I think, is clearly better.
I used to have the arcade machine for that, and my favorite part was when you're running for the ball, and like you keep the guy who you keep hitting it to keeps hitting it to the left side of the court, so you're running left, and then they finally hit it right, and you go left, and then you try and hit right, and your guy like stumbles and falls on his ass like on the court, and you're like, no, because every other game like you'll just instantly dive the direction you're pushing, but that one you just made you fall because you hit the wrong way first.
Yeah. Gotta work on your footwork.
Yep.
Yeah, no, Virtua Tennis, but you're right. Yeah, Virtua Tennis, like, it's, the sales numbers on that game were way better than they had any right to be.
Oh, yeah.
A tennis game on the Dreamcast. But it was and the reviews were fantastic, and everyone who played it was like, listen, I'm not a tennis person, but I am enjoying this game very, very much. So, we had a great time with Virtua Tennis.
Yeah, tell me any other system retrospective that you're going to do that's going to like highly feature a tennis game besides Virtual Boy, because you have to.
There isn't one. Exactly. Yeah, there's not. It's
what
very
about table tennis on the 360?
Yeah, okay.
Rockstar's table tennis, that thing did crazy.
It did. It's
because it had Rockstar.
Yeah, it's not like no one's remembering the epic gameplay of Rockstar Table Tennis.
Yeah, they are. Come on. They were like racist in that game, so the Chinese guy was like the best player and you could not beat him.
Well, it's not race, it's just relevant. It's real.
Didn't you watch Forrest Gump?
Yeah. Well, he was the first one to visit land of China in like 1,000 years or something.
All right. Well, I've got another one I'm going to mention that we didn't get over here, but I think probably is definitely worth at least throwing out there because it did come out in Japan and Europe, and that's Rez.
Right.
And we did get Rez here eventually on the 360.
PS2.
Oh, yeah, that's right. There was a PS2 version, right? Yeah, I forgot about that. But Rez was this strange music shooter hybrid idea that was so stylized. I don't know. It's hard to explain unless you've played it, right? I mean, how else would you? And you sort of evolve if you do well in playing. I don't know if that's not even the right term.
There's no way anyone's gonna, like, you could talk about it for like 10 minutes and then someone could watch a YouTube video of it and be like, oh, that's not what he said at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's very difficult to put into words the visual experience of this game, and kind of like, I can't imagine how a person would tell a group of people, this is the game I want to make.
I think they should like have videotapes in every like pitch meeting, because I would love to like hear the pitch for something like this. Like, how do you convince people this will make them money?
Right.
Well, again, here we go. The Dreamcast, right? Throw it at the wall, see what sticks, and some amazing, crazy thing come out, you know?
Yeah.
But the ability to kind of mash together this kind of very rhythmic experience to a shooter, it just works really well. It just, like you said, it's really hard to describe Rez at all. But in whatever way you can play it, you should check out Rez, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's at least worth a play or two.
I think the last thing we can probably end on, at least in terms of games, and then we'll do a quick wrap up, is I want to mention Bleem, right?
Yeah, it's worth mentioning.
So there was a big thing for a while where everybody was talking about Bleem, and Bleem was a PlayStation 1 emulator for computers and Dreamcast, right?
Yeah, I sometimes I forget about this, but you could buy Bleem in like a big box PC box for like $30.
Yeah, and just pop the games in.
Yep, and you would install it on your machine, and then once it was in there, you could put a PlayStation game in there and play it on your... I mean, it wasn't perfect, but yeah, it was this like emulation software, and there was a Dreamcast version that was long delayed from kind of like when they first announced it until like when it kind of finally came out. But it did eventually come out. And
unfortunately, they had to kind of scale back. So what they ended up is they did, they called it Bleemcast, and they would do a version of this emulator specific to a game, right?
Right. Yep. So you'd kind of have like Bleemcast Metal Gear Solid.
Yep.
Or Bleemcast Gran Turismo. Yeah, there was only a handful of them. And I remember how, like, all the screenshots, it was like, whoa, it'd be like playing a PlayStation game, only like it would look really, really good. I was really into this, and I was really following it a lot. But they also kept running into legal troubles because, obviously Sony doesn't want them to release this thing. So like, and Bleem's a small company where they're like, listen, we're fighting Sony. We're doing the best we can. So.
Yeah. And they weren't breaking any laws, but Sony has so many high power attorneys, they can just bury you.
Injunction. Yeah. I think Phoenix Wright was on the case.
But that's it. Even if there's no merit, they can just keep throwing them at you until you bleed money, right? And you can't go on anymore.
You're just bleeming money.
That's right. But I played Metal Gear Solid using the Bleemcast, and it's like the first HD remake. You know what I mean?
Right. It
totally made that game look amazing.
Yeah.
At the time.
Even some of the screenshots, I mean, you can just, anyone listening, you can just Google, like, just Bleem or Bleemcast, and you can see just some of the, like, the Ridge Racer, the Gran Turismo, the Metal Gear comparisons. Like, the screenshots are one thing. Seeing it in action and in motion, it's really a big improvement. Yeah.
And even after Bleem died, a lot of people kind of did like a hack to it where you could play a whole bunch of different games. I remember that for a while. So,
right.
It was pretty cool. So, that was neat. That was the first time, I think, only time I can ever think of how you could play another system's games on yours, like a competitor system, right?
Coleco?
Yep.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, because you had the Atari, like expansion module 1, right? But that was hardware.
I'm doing pretty good today.
Yeah, I'm nailing it.
That's pretty good.
Except for that Shenmue thing.
Yeah. And VV.
Well, it was a big thing back then, too. And I think actually Atari did sue Coleco, but they lost, right? I think they lost that.
Really? Oh, I don't remember that.
I think they did. I think they did sue Coleco, but they lost because they didn't have any proprietary hardware in that thing.
They built it at Radio Shack.
Just about off-the-shelf parts.
Yeah.
So finally, let's talk about the death of the Dreamcast. So as we said,
whoa! When did that happen?
well, technically,
mine's still running.
Yeah, but
oh, you're talking about like commercially in the U.S.,
right? As far as Sega sunsetting the product. So as we mentioned, that launched on 9/9/99, discontinued in the U.S. in 2001.
Well, that's 2 years longer than the 32X lasted.
Yeah, just wow, right?
Yeah. And that was sad times because this was a solid, like, I never, ever felt like this system was behind, except like in the couple categories of like, the sports games and like, like my personal taste in RPGs. I really felt like there was a lot of solid stuff on it. It's, apparently, a lot of people didn't agree.
Yeah. I was surprised when I did a little research to find out, though, that even though Dreamcast hardware stopped, in Japan, they kept releasing games all the way, and the last release in Japan was in 2007 for Dreamcast. Isn't that amazing?
That is incredible.
Yeah, they kept bringing over like these Naomi games to Dreamcast over there, so wow, fantastic.
What a cool name.
What's that?
The Naomi hardware?
Yeah.
That's a cool name.
It's my wife's name. She was pretty excited when we got that Virtua Tennis when she found that
out. You told
her? Yeah. Yeah. She's like, can we call that one Big Naomi?
And then do you ever, like, if like she's like in the other room, do you ever yell like, Naomi? And she's like, which one? You talking to me or
Big Naomi?
Well, let's talk about the death of the Dreamcast just for a moment, because it probably won't take long. But
it's pretty sad.
I think it kind of really centers on two kind of pivot points, I think, to the most part. Number one, Sega was hemorrhaging money. They were having a very difficult time, Sega Japan, financially, and they just couldn't keep fighting. They had to throw in the towel. They couldn't do it. And then this is my thought on it, and I'll see what you guys think as well. I think the biggest misstep they made with the Dreamcast, honestly, is no DVD playback.
I think there is some merit to that.
It's hard to argue against that when you see how well the PS2 did over the other three, and none of the other three. I guess the Xbox did if you bought the stupid controller.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
Yeah.
But we have to remember at the time, DVD players were very expensive.
Well, yeah. I mean, so the PlayStation 2, so many people bought that. With like kind of like yeah, it's a little more expensive, but like whatever, it's also a DVD player.
Exactly.
Like, there were and it wasn't just a few people doing that. Like there was a ton of people doing that, and there's a lot of people because the Dreamcast got the head start, right? So a lot of people, hey, this Dreamcast is out now, and they're like, oh well, the PlayStation's not too far around the corner, and it's got the DVD thing. Like a lot of people held out. And that's there's a lot of little things, but I think there's a lot to the DVD playback and the people waiting for like the thing around the corner.
Yeah, because like you said, a DVD player at the time was like $200. So a $300 PlayStation 2 doesn't sound bad at all, right?
No. Yeah.
So that was probably Sega just didn't, it's amazing with how much other technology they bundled into this thing. They just didn't see that one coming.
Right.
They just didn't see it until it was too late. Because imagine if it had come out first with DVD playback.
Yeah.
End of story, right?
Even if it was $100 more.
Especially with those early shipping problems that Sony was having. They could have really capitalized on that.
Yeah. What a shame. I think that was probably a big misstep. And then eventually just the Sony juggernaut, right? There was just so many games.
Yeah, Sony had a good brand going into PS2, and Sega didn't quite have the same brand it used to have.
Yeah.
And I think people now forget how huge PlayStation 2 actually was.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean there are consoles like the Wii that have enormous software libraries, but without, the ratio of good games to not good games is it's pretty obvious which direction that goes. But PlayStation 2 had a ton of games and a ton of really good games.
And just sales-wise, like the Wii was tracking higher than the PS2 at first, but it didn't have the long-lasting appeal that the PS2 did. It eventually petered out, and the PS2 kept going like crazy strong for many more years than the Wii was able to.
Well, we know. I mean, you were able to buy brand new PS2s until like about a year ago.
Yeah.
And they still made a game last year for PS2, an EA Sports game, right? So, I mean, that's an amazing longevity for that system.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really just totally crushed all the competition.
And I think the financial problems you were talking about, I think that has a lot to do with it because, when you have a war chest, like, Sony does, like Microsoft does, like Nintendo does, you can afford to make some mistakes. You can afford to throw a whole bunch of money toward a new initiative. With the problem Sega was having, even if they knew, okay, we think we know the direction we're going is no good. We think this is what we need to do to fix it. This is what it's going to take to do it. Even if they had all that info, they're going to be like, well, we're a little light on the yen, so we're not going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. But they made the announcement they were going to go third party, and that was the end of that, right?
And for people who grew up with Sega, the first time you saw Sonic on a Nintendo system was a really weird day.
Yeah, and I don't know what your opinions of Sega are, but they've never recaptured the glory days. They've just never been able to do it. Even with their software, it's not been as great.
No, there's still one of the few bigger publishers that's willing to put out something quirky at least once in a while.
That's probably fair.
They'll put out a Valkyria Chronicles or a Bayonetta, or they don't do it as often as they used to, but they'll still take the odd chance and put out some really cool stuff. Yeah.
But such a shame. All right, so that's our thoughts on the Sega Dreamcast. We'd like to hear what you think. What did you love about the system? Was it ahead of its time? Should it have lasted longer than it did if Sega didn't run into the financial troubles they did? Do you have love for the system? What were your favorite games? But be sure and let us know. All right, well, thanks everybody again for listening to another episode of the Collectorcast. I want to thank my co-hosts. So, Bill, Krabby, thanks for being along.
Always a pleasure.
Absolutely.
And just to wrap up, as usual, there's a couple different places that you can find the show. So, Bill, where can people get us?
I would just go right to iTunes.com.
Is that a real thing, iTunes.com?
It probably not. But if you Google iTunes.com, it'll probably take you to apple.com/iTunes, where you can install iTunes and download the podcast.
It may very well be a thing. You got to try that. I don't know. Maybe it is. Krabby, where else?
Podcast Pickle, of course.
Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't you?
Everyone's favorite podcasting vegetable.
Pickle vegetable.
I don't know.
And you can find us at collectorcast.com. We've got an RSS feed there that you can shove into your favorite podcatcher, right? Where else, Bill?
You can probably go to Podomatic, Stitcher Smart Radio.
Yes, you could do those, Podomatic or Stitcher. Absolutely. If they want to chat with us, Krabby, how can they do that?
They can't chat with me on Twitter, but they can chat with you on Twitter. They can chat with me on rfgeneration.com.
Certainly.
Yeah. If they want to chat with Krabby, they can say, "Hey, Duke, can you give this message to Krabby for me?"
That's right.
And then
that's what generally happens. Yes. So at Collectorcast or on Facebook, just Collectorcast.
And he
We're also
never
Collectorcast on
gives
YouTube.
me any of those messages.
All the ones I get are just, is Krabby on Twitter? No. No, he's not. You can find him on Facebook if you look at his store page. So that's about all I can pass along. But yeah, social media, hit us out there. We're Collectorcast.
Yeah, I did get a comment on my store page. Like there was a big list, like 20 comments or something, and right in the middle, someone mentioned Axe Battler. Very randomly.
Can't escape him.
That's right. The listeners are everywhere. Well, thanks everybody again for listening to us, and we'll see you next time. Want no musical interlude?
I couldn't think of anything Dreamcast launchy.
You can do like the startup jingle.
What is it? Like, it's like Sonic Adventure. I don't know. I remember the Sonic Adventure theme.
Like, can you do the turn on sound?
Wasn't it like... oh, yeah, like... ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, like
but
whatever.
And the Sonic, Sonic had some pretty heavy guitar riffs, and we can talk about that, like and we actually, I'll save a little bit for the thing, but, I remember getting to the title screen and it was like, right?
Yeah, it was like, whoa.
Oh man. Yeah.
Sonic for the 90s.
Yeah. I got a story about the music in that game I'll save for the segment.
Cool.